Chapter 1049. Legend has it that two nouveau riches from the countryside entered Tianxiang City with 5,000 taels of silver. They thought that they were rich and overbearing and wanted to go to the aristocratic hall to have some fun. But after they arrived, they asked the guard at the door, "What can I do with 5,000 taels of silver? How long can I play with it?" The guard looked at the two nouveau riches with pity in his eyes. He pointed and said, "Do you see that? There's an aristocratic tea house over there. You can pay 5,000 taels of silver and find 2 seats on the first floor. You can enjoy a pot of tea there. But remember, you can only sit there for half an hour. After that, you can come out and go home. Another piece of advice: when you drink tea, you must be honest. Don't make any request just because the girl serving you tea is pretty. As long as the girl sits down, yes, just simply sits down, once her butt touches the chair at your table, regardless of whether you have any other requests, you will definitely not be able to leave this place without 50,000 taels of silver." The two rich people thought for a long time before they came to the conclusion that 5,000 taels of silver was only enough for a pot of tea in the aristocratic hall. They couldn't do anything else. Even if they didn't lack money, they wouldn't be able to spend it like that. Thus, he left with his tail between his legs, saving the 5,000 taels of silver that he had spent later on. This little story became a joke. Many people angrily accused the aristocratic hall of being heartless and making fun of the poor. But those who could afford to spend money flocked to it like a flock of ducks. Not only did they not feel ashamed, but they also felt proud. Are you a noble? Have you been to the aristocratic hall? Haven't been there? Then what kind of noble are you? Bullshit. Talk business? Sure, let's go to the aristocratic hall's tea house. What? Can't afford it? You can't even afford to go to the aristocratic hall, and you still have the nerve to talk business with me? Then forget it. If you lose money, can you afford to pay for it? Do you have anything auctioned in the aristocratic hall? No. Then you're too ridiculous. The aristocratic hall is something only super nobles can afford. Only super nobles are eligible to enter. One's wallet would be as shriveled as an eggplant once they entered the aristocratic hall. But they would feel as if they were a superhuman with a meteoric rise to the heavens once they came out. You can enter the aristocratic hall. You'll be an elite. This was the pinnacle. This was extreme. This was the basic guiding principle that Jun Dashao had formulated when he first established the aristocratic hall. And the slogan was all the same. After Tang Yuan took over, he vigorously promoted this idea, spreading it to the entire Xian continent. As the reputation of the evil monarch grew, so did the reputation of the aristocratic hall. It seemed as if the aristocratic hall's price had been rising like a rocket. But the higher the price, the more people would go. This was something that ordinary people couldn't understand. This was the legendary idiot effect. The medicinal ingredients that had flowed out of Jun Dashao's hands were no longer worth their attention. Therefore, the aristocratic hall immediately started to auction them. Normally, one could buy it with 1,000 gold taels. But as long as it was auctioned by the aristocratic hall, then one wouldn't be able to buy it for less than 50,000 gold taels. Why? I'm a noble. What I'm here to auction isn't spirit medicine. It's my status. Understand, bidding for 1,000 gold taels? That's really throwing the face of the nobles. When a pot of tea was priced at 50 silver taels, no one drank it. But when it rose to 500 silver taels, it was as crowded as a marketplace. And when it rose to 5,000 silver taels, one actually needed to make a reservation. This tea house was one of the most low-end businesses of the aristocratic hall. So, one could well imagine how terrifying Fatty's net worth was at this moment. Money could enslave ghosts and even gods. When the amount of money reached a level that could move anyone in the world, even if you didn't have any shocking strength, you would still be a person that could shake the world. The entire Xian continent was in an uproar. All the major powers were mobilized, and all of them were elites. This was not only an invitation to the evil monarch's opening ceremony. It was also a great opportunity to show off in front of the heroes of the world. Who would be willing to let this opportunity go? The evil monarch's opening ceremony caused the entire continent to boil, from the 3 holy lands to the various families of the secular world. Even some of the lone bandits started to move at the same time. Some of those who didn't receive an invitation were also fretting over gifts. If they could have a good gift that the evil monarch took a liking to, that would be like reaching the heavens in a single step. It didn't matter if they had received an invitation or not. At least 2/3 of the people were worried about the congratulatory gifts. They definitely couldn't go empty-handed. But what should they send? What should they send that would allow them to stand out in front of the evil monarch? I've heard that this old master is an extremely unreasonable fellow. If the gift doesn't stand out, it's fine. But if it doesn't satisfy him, it's likely that your life will be in danger. As a result, many wealthy families started to have incidents of theft, robbery, kidnapping, etc. They didn't want gold or silver. I even accepted Duga Xiaoyi, and now I took Miao Xiao Miao. Then, why can't I accept the Snake King? This is a world where men are superior to women, and where polygamy is common. Even women don't care about it. Then, don't tell me that I don't dare to bear the responsibility that I should bear. Did they really have to push these intelligent and affectionate women to some ordinary people? Would they really be able to find happiness? No, if I really do that, it will definitely not be happiness for them. It will only drive them into a bottomless abyss, and I will not be able to live with a guilty conscience for the rest of my life. Since that's the case, what am I afraid of? Who am I afraid of? Back then, Guanxing Han was the target of a crusade against by the world. She was condemned and reviled by the world, but I still managed to resist it. Could it be that after going through so many things, I am afraid of the slightest thing? I am me. I am Zhu Moxi. I am a monarch of all evils in this world. Why should I care about what others think? I will do as I please. That's enough. As for other people's cold eyes, who do they think they are? If you provoke me, I will slaughter your entire family. Thinking of this, Zhu Moxi felt his mind clear up and his whole body relaxed. In that moment of clarity, he once again recalled the Jun family's ancestral teachings. If you have a bird between your legs, you must be a man. Indomitable spirit, go to hell. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. Go to hell. Really go to hell, haha. His heroic laughter pierced through the clouds and the wind, startling the birds in the mountains and causing them to fly away in panic. Suddenly, Zhu Moxi clearly heard a weak moan coming from the Hongjun Pagoda. Zhu Moxi instantly determined the source of the sound and couldn't help but feel overjoyed. His body flashed, and he suddenly disappeared from the forest. His whole body had already entered the Hongjun Pagoda. Inside the Hongjun Pagoda, the Snake King Green Hunter was supporting her frail body with great difficulty. Her beautiful eyes were looking at the surrounding scenery in a puzzled manner. Her eyes were full of perplexity. You're awake? Zhu Moxi had returned to his original appearance after leaving the Misty Mansion. Seeing that Qian Sun had woken up, he couldn't help but ask in a gentle voice. You? Snake King's face flashed with a trace of pleasant surprise. Then, his face darkened, and he lowered his head, saying in a low voice, Brother-in-law, where are we? How come I'm not dead? Brother-in-law is here. How could I let you die? This place is indeed a secret place. Zhu Moxi replied with a smile. But his heart was inexplicably sour. When Qian Sun had woken up, her beautiful eyes had been filled with ecstasy upon seeing him. Her expression of contentment had been seen by him. This woman had been full of confusion and fear towards this strange place. But all the confusion and fear in her eyes had turned into peace the moment he had appeared. Chapter 10:50. But Qian Sun immediately restrained her surging emotions and still called out brother-in-law. Zhu Moxi could hear how difficult and unwilling it was for Qian Sun to call him brother-in-law. A trace of inexplicable disappointment flashed through Qian Sun's eyes. She originally thought that she was already dead, but Zhu Moxi had also died with her. Under Zhang Mubai's earth-shattering and destructive attack, Qian Sun originally did not have the slightest hope of survival. She sacrificed herself for Zhu Moxi, and also for her own hopeless love. If Zhu Moxi had also come to the netherworld with her, although she had let down her elder sister, she would still be able to have him. Even if it was in the Yellow Springs, just now, when she asked, "Why am I still alive?" she actually hoped to hear a negative answer. If she was already dead, then it meant that June Moxie, who was with her, was also already. It also meant that she and him could. But now, she already understood that her hopes had been dashed, and she was actually still alive. Since she was still alive, then she still had to face that hopeless relationship with difficulty, and she had to carry it all the way. How do you feel now? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? June Moxie was a little nervous as he supported her. Chien Sun had just woken up, and in the long period of time before this, he had fed her countless elixirs and heavenly treasures. How did she feel? "I'm fine. The only feeling is, I'm so full." Chien Sun tried to check her body, but found that there was nothing wrong with it. Apart from her body being a little weak, her dantian was unexpectedly full of vitality beyond imagination. It seemed that during this period of time when she was unconscious, her xianqi had actually advanced by leaps and bounds, and had even reached a level that she had never hoped to reach. If she had to say where she felt uncomfortable, there was only one thing. Why was she so full? Even a little, brother-in-law, how long have I been unconscious? Chien Sun quietly asked. He's in a coma for a total of 3 months and 8 days, plus 12 hours. June Moxie thought for a moment, and answered with unusual precision. "Ah, so much time has passed." Shocked, the Snake King stood up. Then he realized that although his body was a little weak, it could still listen to his will. He didn't feel the slightest bit awkward. He asked in surprise, "Since I've been unconscious for so long, then why is this happening?" Fainting did not mean death. Even if he was unconscious, he still needed to eat, drink, and excrete. Moreover, after being in a coma for such a long time, the muscles, bones, and joints would definitely show signs of stiffness or even atrophy. Normally, such a phenomenon would occur after a few days of seclusion, let alone several months. But he didn't feel any abnormality at all. This in itself was the greatest abnormality of the sect. These 3 months. Who has been taking care of me? The Snake King lowered his head and asked in a low voice. Cough, cough, cough. June Dashao touched his nose and said a little awkwardly, "This. I've been taking care of you all this time. It's you?" Chien Sun was instantly embarrassed. However, there was an inexplicable joy in her shyness. It seemed that even Chien Sun didn't understand why she had such a thought out of nowhere. Her snow-white face instantly turned bright red. It even went all the way down to her neck. She quietly asked, Then how did you take care of me?" This. June Moxie made up his mind and said, "We're all family. There's no need to do that. It's just as you imagined, In order to prevent your body from having any negative effects, I massage the muscles, meridians, and joints of your body twice a day in the morning and evening. 3 times a day, I feed you, And as he said this, the Snake King was so embarrassed that he covered his face with his hands and buried his face deep in his chest. His whole body was trembling, and what? No wonder he didn't feel any discomfort at all. It turned out that he had been massaging him all this time, and feeding him. Didn't that mean that he touched every part of his body? Thinking of this, the Lord Snake King, who had just woken up, wished that he could faint again. This was too embarrassing. Cough, 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 and cough, cough. June Moxie coughed and yawned. People have 3 needs, even if you were unconscious, this, that. So he was also... The Snake King let out a soft moan. He was so embarrassed that he actually felt like fainting. June Moxie was shocked. He hurriedly hugged him, patted his back, and pinched his philtrum. Finally, the Lord Snake King was saved, however. The Snake King, who had woken up, seemed to have returned to his original form. His whole body was limp. He was paralyzed in June Moxie's arms, refusing to raise his head no matter what. So, I felt so full just after waking up. He actually... Sai, what should I do? How should I face all of this? People have 3 needs. He actually helped me deal with those. Doesn't that mean that I have no secrets in front of him? Not only had he seen her naked and touched her, he had even done the most shameful thing to her. Those are embarrassing things that even a husband and wife wouldn't have to do. This is really troublesome. After thinking for a long time, he realized that it was not a good idea to keep this stalemate. Finally, he decided to break the deadlock. He casually asked, "Then, how did you feed me?" His voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzz. Jun Dashao groaned inwardly. "Sister, why did you even ask this question? Do you need to ask in such detail? How did I feed him? How else can I feed him? Just feed him like that." However, since she had already asked this question, he had to answer it. Making up his mind, Jun Dashao thickened his face and said, "Just like that, mouth to mouth, ah." The Snake King instantly realized that he had asked another stupid question. He immediately covered his face and turned his head away. It's my fault." Jun Dashao comforted him. "Well, that, I will take responsibility, no need." To his surprise, as soon as Jun Moxie said this, the Snake King suddenly turned around. "I don't want you to take responsibility for me. You are my brother-in-law. You will always be my brother-in-law in this life. You can only be my brother-in-law. You can never let my sister down. It doesn't matter if she agrees or not. I will definitely not agree." For her reaction, Jun Moxie was already prepared. The Snake King was such a stubborn woman. Otherwise, she wouldn't have tried so hard to hide her feelings after finding out, just to help him and Mei Shuyan. "What you say doesn't count," Jun Moxie said in an unusually tough manner. "Now you are already my woman. What else do you want? You have to agree whether you want to or not. This matter has been decided." "No." Qian Sun suddenly rushed up to him. Her eyes were already full of tears, and her face was pale. "You have to agree whether you want to or not," Jun Moxie said coldly. "This matter has no place for you to speak. I'm head of the family. My words are final." No, you can't do this. Sister will be sad." Qian Sun shook her head forcefully. Suddenly, she gritted her teeth and said, "Brother-in-law, we can't do that. I can't let my sister down. You can't let her down either. How about this? I promise to be your woman, but I will never appear in front of others. Okay? Sister is a person who cares about her reputation. I will never fight with her, never." "What nonsense are you talking about? I belong to all of you. What's the point of fighting? This matter is settled. Say no more," Jun Moxie said in an even tougher tone. Then he said softly, "Qian Sun, I know you respect your sister, but what kind of person do you think I, Jun Moxie, am? Could it be that in your heart, I am such an irresponsible man? If I'm really that kind of man, is it worth your sacrifice?" Qian Sun's face was full of tears. She could only shake her head continuously. Her face was filled with surprise, satisfaction, and a deep sense of guilt. Jun Moxie let out a long sigh and said, "All right, let's hurry on with our journey. We'll talk about it when we get back." Qian Sun nodded her head gently. Jun Moxie thought to himself, "Looks like this matter. I'm afraid I'll need Mei Shuyan to do it personally." Jun Dashao didn't expect that Mei Shuyan's position in Qian Sun's heart was actually this high. But Jun Moxie neglected the fact that Mei Shuyan had been running Tian Fa alone for many years. It could be said that if Tian Fa didn't have Mei Shuyan's hard work, it would no longer have the reputation of being a ferocious place. In the hearts of the beasts of Tian Fa, she was like a teacher, a mother, and an elder sister. How could this kind of respect that had been accumulated over the years be broken so easily? Qian Sun sorted out her emotions and immediately checked the level of her Xian cultivation. The moment she took a breath, she felt that her body was as light as a swallow. She didn't feel any discomfort from her injuries at all. In fact, she felt that her current strength was even higher than before she was injured. In fact, it was more than a level higher. But as to what level she had reached, she didn't know either. It was a level that she had never reached, never dared to hope for, or even heard of before. One had to know that during this period of time, when Green Hunter was injured, Jun Mo Xie had been stuffing countless treasures and miraculous spirit herbs into her mouth as if he didn't care for his life. Because Green Hunter had already lost her consciousness. After all the spirit herbs entered her body, she didn't have any Xian Qi to circulate the medicinal energy. Thus, the unimaginable amount of medicinal energy was stored in her meridians. It had been accumulated for 3 whole months, and there was even a pool of the holy tree's essence. The holy tree's essence's effect was not only to repair the damaged spiritual source, but also to strengthen Qian Sun's body. If not for that, even with Jun Moxie's care, the Snake King's body wouldn't have been able to recover to its normal state the moment she woke up. That was the purest energy of blood essence. Heavenly root water. In the entire world, only the rainbow holy tree that had gained sentience could condense this kind of spiritual energy. Chapter 10:51. The only pity was that Jun Moxie had come across the holy tree a little too late. A considerable portion of the huge medicinal energy in Qian Sun's body had inevitably been wasted, although the effects of the remaining medicinal energy were still considerable. But if he could really absorb all the medicinal energy, the Snake King's strength could definitely be described with the word terrifying. There seems to be a lot of medicinal energy in my body. I need to refine it immediately. Qian Sun raised her head and looked at Jun Moxie. Her eyes were already filled with love and gentleness. From the medicinal energy in her body, she could tell how much Jun Moxie had done for her during this period of time. Even the usually cold and indifferent Snake King could not help but feel excited. This was all the love of his sweetheart. Good. Focus on refining it here. I will stand guard for you. Jun Moxie nodded. Qian Sun's cultivation lasted for an entire day and night. She maintained the same posture, not moving at all. Only the fluctuation of spiritual energy around her became stronger, and then it was absorbed. Then, another wave of spiritual energy appeared and surrounded her body, and it was absorbed again. Every time the spiritual energy changed, it meant that Qian Sun had taken another step forward on the path of cultivation. After a total of 6 times, it finally stopped at the moment when it was about to stop. Jun Moxie, who was standing guard at the side, quickly turned 3 Heaven Extremes pills into spiritual liquid and sent it in her mouth. Then, the spiritual energy started to fluctuate once again. No matter how she broke through here, there was no need to worry about the danger of the tribulation. The lightning tribulation could not sense this place at all. She could only wait for the breakthrough to be completed before going out. It was done in total. She could directly use the Hongjun Pagoda to absorb the lightning tribulation and turn it into pure spiritual energy. So, Jun Moxie was prepared to let the Snake King level up to the peak in one go and reach the ranks of the world's top experts. Since his woman could be cultivated, why wouldn't he cultivate her? Jun Moxie stretched out his hand, and the surging spiritual energy in the Hongjun Pagoda rapidly gathered in his palm like a long dragon. Then, it slowly condensed into a solid substance. Da Xiao carefully took out a drop of golden jade fluid and fused it with it. Then, he repeated the process and fed it to Qian Sun. This time, the spiritual chi fluctuation could not be mentioned in the same breath as before. It could be said to be extremely violent. For the first time, a pained expression appeared on the face of the Snake King. The meridians all over his body seemed to swell up. The blood vessels could be seen clearly in his muscles. Jun Moxie unhurriedly stretched out a hand and pressed it against her back. A stream of extremely pure spiritual power flowed into her body, helping her digest the medicine. Strands of black and smelly juice were slowly squeezed out from Qian Sun's skin. After a long, long time, Qian Sun finally woke up. You have to tidy yourself up properly. There's a small island over there, and there's a set of clothes here specially prepared for you when you wake up. When you go out later, you have to prepare for the lightning tribulation. Jun Moxie smiled slightly, knowing that she was shy, and flashed out of the Hongjun Pagoda. Qian Sun looked at her body and felt the surging pure spiritual power in her body. Looking at the direction that Jun Moxie had left, she could not help but smile happily, but 2 lines of tears fell from her eyes. At this moment, the sky was densely covered with tribulation clouds. Dense lightning bolts struck down nonstop. However, on the ground, Qian Sun was still nestled in Jun Moxie's arms, safe and sound. The Hongjun Pagoda devoured all the lightning bolts that struck down loyally, almost greedily. When everything was over, Jun Moxie carefully examined the Snake King's Qian energy. To his surprise, he discovered that it was the first level of the Holy Emperor. One must know that before Qian Sun fainted, she was merely a superior supreme. Even Miao, Xiao Miao, was slightly inferior. But after this drastic change, she had directly skipped the fourth level of the venerable, the fourth level of the saint, and reached the level of the holy emperor in one step. It seemed that she was not much inferior to Mei Shuyan before they parted. After all, she had more than Mei Shuyan in the holy tree's blood essence by a few thousand years. If one were to add in the various levels of beginner, intermediate, and peak, then this time, it would be a shocking improvement of nearly 30 levels. This kind of improvement, even if it was described as reaching the heavens in one step, could only be said to be appropriate and not the slightest bit excessive. Even when Qian Sun herself knew of her own advancement, she could not help but open her mouth in shock and could not recover for a long time. Holy Emperor? She was a strong holy emperor? This level, it seemed that she had not even heard of it. A day later in the afternoon, in a small town in the northern suburbs of Tianxiang Kingdom, a man and a woman walked slowly. The man was dressed in a white robe. He had a handsome face and a slender figure. He was dressed in a light robe, and his movements were graceful and elegant. The woman was dressed in a green robe. Her figure was petite, but delicate and lovely, like a dreamy fairy, especially this woman's robe. It was like looking at a flower through the mist. It was completely impossible to tell what material it was made of, but it gave the beautiful woman a dreamy and surreal feeling. She walked on the road like this, but it gave others the feeling that she was riding on the clouds all the way here. These two people were naturally the famous evil monarch, Jun Moxi, and the Qian Sun Serpent Queen. As for the robe that Qian Sun was wearing, it was a gift that the Nine-Nether First Young Master had given to Jun Dashao in the secret chamber at the peak of the snowy mountain, one of the 9 sets of robes. It seemed that Jun Dashao only had the chance to give one of them to his own woman at this moment. And among these 9 sets of robes, there was not a single color. There were all kinds of colors, but there was only one pure green robe. When Jun Moxi had taken it out, Qian Sun had fallen in love with it the moment she saw it. She had immediately changed into it. As expected, the Snake King who had changed into this set of robes was even more beautiful with her snow-white complexion. After the tribulation, Qian Sun had immediately chased Jun Dashao to one side and ordered him not to show his face. Then, she had secretly escaped hundreds of li away before settling the awkward matter of people have 3 needs, this enemy. Even if you want to feed me food, there's no need to make me so full, right? I'm really stuffed to death. Even such a heavy injury did not take my life. If my stomach really burst from a food, wouldn't that be a great injustice? Naturally, the Snake King did not know, and Jun Dashao would not ask for trouble and take the initiative to explain. Jun Dashao had always thought that as long as it was a Xian beast, it would definitely eat a lot. For example, Bear Mountain's appetite. So, after the holy tree had treated Qian Sun, Jun Dashao had fed her food according to half of Bear King's appetite, for fear that she would starve. Only when she could not eat anymore did he stop, let alone Qian Sun. Even Jun Dashao had chewed until his cheeks were sore. 1 kiss was a good thing, but 100 kisses, 1,000 kisses. But if he were to say it out, he would definitely be chased by the Snake King mercilessly. You're feeding me like a pig, and it seems like I'm feeding a few pigs. Then there were many more good things in Jun Dashao's Hongjun Pagoda collection. 5 to 6 snakeskins. One had to know that every time the Snake King advanced, he had to shed his skin once. Naturally, the Snake King would definitely not let Dashao be by his side. This was also because the Snake King had advanced too many times in one go. If he had done it step by step, he would have probably shed 10 to 20 of them. However, although the Snake King was very embarrassed about this, Jun Dashao did not think much of it. This brother already knew that you're the Snake King. I've already treated you as my wife. What's there to be bothered about? Besides, the new White Snake Lady, Bai Sujin, still gave birth to children. You're much stronger than her. This brother doesn't care about anything at all later on. Jun Dashao had wanted to give her the 7-colored holy fruit and exquisite lotus, but Qian Sun had asked at that time. Has Big Sis eaten them before? Jun Xiao had answered honestly, no, definitely not. I've just gotten my hands on them. It'd be a miracle if she had eaten them before. In the end, the Snake King refused to eat them no matter what, and even said that he would only eat them after Big Sis had eaten them. The Snake King's insistence made Jun Xiao feel helpless, but at the same time, he felt sincerely gratified for Mei Shuyan. Along the way, as long as they arrived at a place with signs of human habitation, they would always see profound practitioners hurrying along at high speed, as if there was some urgent matter that needed to be dealt with immediately. With such frequent appearances, it was naturally impossible for them to be from the same group. Along the way, Jun Moxie had already seen 7 or 8 groups of people riding on fast horses, sweeping past him like a gust of wind. These Jianghu experts were all in a hurry, and their eyes were filled with an indescribable passion. If it was on a normal day, and they saw a great beauty like the Qian Sun Serpent Queen on the road, no matter how well-behaved they were, it was likely that there would be people who would tease them a little or even say a few words of coquettishness. As for whistles and vulgar laughter, it would be heard incessantly. But today, there was actually not a single person who took the initiative to strike up a conversation. At most, they would turn around and look at her greedily after a gallop. But those lustful gazes would already be carried far away by the thunderous galloping of the horses before anyone could even get angry. Only a billowing cloud of dust was left behind. This made Qian Sun's Serpent Queen somewhat depressed and even a little disappointed. Could it be that after her rebirth, her charm had actually decreased by so much? She couldn't help but feel a little angry along the way. But in his heart, Jun Moxie thought of another possibility. Could it be that something big had happened in the Jianghu recently? Or perhaps something big was about to happen? Or perhaps the war for seizing the heavens was about to start in advance? Otherwise, it was really hard to explain why all these Jianghu experts were acting so strangely. Looking at their appearances, Jun Moxie absolutely believed that even if someone from their own family had died, they would definitely not be running so fast. This was really too strange. But these people were running too quickly, and they didn't even have the chance to ask questions. Of course, Jun Xiao could forcefully stop them, but Jun Moxie didn't want to do so. With the improvement of his Xian Qi, his state of mind had also gradually become more stable. Towards this kind of bullying, Jun Xiao seemed to have lost interest. Chapter 1052. In front of them was a large town. In the surrounding area, it could already be considered as the most prosperous place. The largest restaurant in the town, the Perching Phoenix Restaurant. It was said that in a certain dynasty, a certain imperial concubine had once eaten here. As for this town, it was called the Phoenix Town. At this moment, the Perching Phoenix Restaurant was practically filled to the brim with customers. When Jun Moxie and Qian Sun walked in, there was only one empty table left in the hall. It seemed that the customers had left a while ago, and they had just cleaned it up. In the hall, more than half of the people were armed with swords and sabers. They were dressed like heroes of the pugilistic world. When Jun Moxie looked over, he couldn't help but be shocked. Among these people, there were actually a few Tianxin experts. With a sweep of his eyes, he saw at least 3 or 4 of them. A figure the level of Tianxin was already nothing to the current Jun Xiao. In fact, it was even meaningless. But in this world, Tianxin was at least a hero of a region. It was rare to see a group of Tianxin experts, and it could even be said to be extremely rare. But now, in this relatively remote town that didn't occupy a very large area, there were actually 3 or 4 Tianxin practitioners who were obviously not from the same family eating in the same restaurant. Moreover, they were all very peaceful. Everyone was very quiet. They were all quietly eating their own food and drinking their own wine. There was not the slightest sign of them stirring up trouble. When did these fellows become so well-behaved? Moreover, among these few Tianxin experts, there was obviously enmity between 2 of them. Just from the look of hatred in their eyes, one could tell that. Moreover, the reactions of their servants were even more intense. They were practically at each other's throats, ready to explode at the slightest provocation. However, Although these two people were filled with resentment, they still forcefully restrained their temper and the attitude of their subordinates. The conclusion was very obvious. Both of them were extremely unwilling to have a conflict here. Had the pugilistic world become so civilized? The scene in front of him wasn't very exciting, but it was a shocking scene that left Jun Dashao dumbfounded. He really couldn't understand it. Jun Moxie and Qian Sun slowly sat down. Immediately, a waiter came forward to greet them. "Young master, madam, may I ask if you have an invitation?" "Invitation? What invitation?" Jun Moxie asked in surprise. "What's going on today? Why would he ask if I have an invitation to a meal? What's going on?" Compared to the astonished Jun Dashao, Snake King Qian had already blushed after being called madam by the waiter. He lowered his head shyly and happily. Since young master doesn't have an invitation, then please order some dishes." When the waiter received a negative answer, he did not hesitate at all. He continued to answer attentively, bowed, and handed over the menu. However, Jun Dashao was even more astonished. What was this? You don't even have an invitation, yet you're treating me to food? Could it be that he didn't need to order dishes if he had an invitation? An invitation. Maybe it was the birthday of a local dignitary, and he ordered the manager of this restaurant to greet the guests with an invitation and finally settle the bill together. It must be so. From the looks of it, young Master Jun's conjecture was indeed partially correct, but the majority of it was completely different from the truth. "Waiter, is there a quiet private room?" Jun Moxie looked at the messy hall and frowned. "I'm sorry, young master. There are no more private rooms in this restaurant." The waiter bowed apologetically. "Then let's sit here," Qian Sun said in a low voice. When the waiter called her madam just now, she was incomparably sweet. At this moment, she didn't care about anything. That's fine. Jun Moxie casually ordered a few light dishes and ordered a pot of wine as if dealing with official business. The waiter pursed his lips and went to take the menu. Seeing that these two people were dressed very well, he thought that they had extraordinary backgrounds. Such customers were the restaurant's favorite. He never thought that the man would actually order two vegetables that were so bland that water would come out. It was really a little too lousy. How embarrassing. If I could bring a girl like that out, I would be willing to spend all the money I've earned in my entire life on these dishes. What miser. Who would have thought that the famous evil monarch, Jun Moxie, Jun Dashao, would actually be scolded as a miser by a waiter on the eve of the opening of the evil monarch manor? The affairs of the world were unpredictable. Just at this moment, the sound of horse hooves rang out, coming from afar and stopping at the entrance of the restaurant. Following that, orderly footsteps rang out, and a few middle-aged men appeared at the entrance, escorting a man and a woman. The man was a burly man dressed in purple, and he walked in with his head held high. Jun Moxie furrowed his brows. Another Tian Xian expert, and a peak Tian Xian expert at that. Just what was going on today? For Lord Sima, I didn't expect you to come as well. Let's travel together. Among those seated, several people stood up to greet him. Fort Master Sima faintly smiled and nodded. There were even a few people who tactfully gave up one of the large tables. Fort Master Sima did not stand on ceremony. He cupped his fists and thanked them before walking over and sitting down. The moment he sat down, he took out a palm-sized rectangular object that seemed to be made of purple copper and placed it on the table. When he took out this bronze token, Fort Lord Sima's gaze swept across the entire hall, and a smug look appeared on his face, as if he had expected. As soon as the purple object appeared, a wave of admiring gazes shot towards him. One of them laughed dryly and said, "Fort Lord Sima is indeed worthy of being called Fort Lord Sima. It's actually purple copper. I'm really envious of you brothers." Fort Lord Sima's purple face revealed an indescribable smug expression, but he still cupped his fists and said, "You flatter me. This is just Lord Monarch giving me face. Actually, how could I, Sima, be worthy of this purple copper invitation? You're too polite, too polite. Fort Lord Sima is really too polite. How could Lord Monarch give the wrong invitation? Fort Lord Sima holding the purple copper invitation is only natural. A group of people said in unison. "Ha! Everyone, you're too kind." For Lord Sima finally could not hold back his complacency and laughed heartily. The young woman who accompanied Fort Lord Sima and had not said a word since she entered, but her eyes were fixed on Qian Sun's dress. Her face was full of reluctance, as if she wanted to use her eyes to swallow Qian Sun's dress. It had to be said that fashion was an irresistible temptation to women in any dynasty, region, or country, especially the long dress that Qian Sun was wearing now. It was emerald green, and it was pleasing to the eyes. It was elegant, but it did not lose its elegance, dignified, but it did not lose its playfulness, graceful and reserved. Although the color was bright, it did not dazzle the eyes. The style of the dress looked ordinary at first glance, but as long as one took a closer look, one would be mesmerized by it. Only after careful observation, one would realize that regardless of the style or the color combination of the dress, it was all unique and ingenious. Just by sitting there in such a monotonous manner, he was already so graceful and radiant that no one dared to stare at him. There were almost no gorgeous decorations on the entire dress. There were only 3 small white diamonds embedded in the waistband around the waist. On the chest area, there was actually a dark line that projected a graceful phoenix pattern. However, it was this obscure feeling that made people more fond of it. Especially after putting it on, it made her look like a fairy from the heavens, elegant, noble, and unattainable. Which woman would not want to wear such an outstanding dress? The more she looked at it, the more she liked it, and it became more and more difficult for her to give it up. Her eyes were filled with greed and reluctance. Finally, she could not control her desire, so she stretched her head and whispered something in Fort Lord Sima's ear. Fort Lord Sima was slightly stunned. He could not help but turn around and look at Jun Moxie and Qian Sun's table. When he saw Qian Sun, this Fort Lord could not help but reveal a strong sense of amazement in his eyes. When he first came in, he really didn't notice, nor did he think that he would meet such a rare beauty in such a secluded place. Looking at the 2 people, although they were dressed luxuriously and had an extraordinary bearing, they were both young men and women. He could not help but feel moved. He thought to himself, "It seems like they are the young masters and young ladies of a noble family, or a young couple who are out to play." However, with his cultivation base at the peak of Tianxian, there was really no one that he could not afford to offend within a few thousand miles. "This young master, I am Sima Shang. Nice to meet you." Fort Lord Sima cupped his fists in a reserved manner. There's an expression on his face that said, "I'm giving you a lot of face by talking to you, oh." Fort Lord Sima, what's the matter? Jun Moxie raised his head and asked him what he thought was a rather gentle tone. Jun Dashao really did not want to get entangled with these small characters in this secluded place. So, Jun Dashao felt that he was already very amiable. If Jun Moxie revealed his identity as the evil monarch, how would he be just amiable? This Fort Lord Sima would probably be so scared that he would faint. After that, when he woke up, he would at least have to brag to others for the rest of his life. If he could remember in his next life, he would probably continue to brag that the evil monarch had once used a very, very amiable tone to speak to him. But Sima Shang did not know about this right now. So Fort Lord Sima was feeling very uncomfortable in his heart. Who is this ignorant brat? F***CK, why is he so arrogant? What kind of big shot am I? I've taken the initiative to speak to him, and he actually dares to have such an indifferent attitude, and even look at me disapprovingly? This is really too F***king awesome. Chapter 1053. Heir, I see that young noble's appearance is extraordinary, so I wanted to get to know you. Sima Shang smiled insincerely and said, I wonder if young noble has an invitation. Invitation? I don't have one. Do we have to have that thing? Jun Moxie was getting impatient. This guy was at least as strong as Tian Xian, so why was he so blind? Couldn't he tell that this young master didn't want to talk to him? So he didn't have an invitation. Sima Shang was instantly relieved. Since he didn't have an invitation and didn't even know the meaning of an invitation, then he was definitely not some big shot. At the very least, he was definitely not the descendant of some big shot. If that was the case, this young master would truly have nothing to fear. He immediately roared, "You ignorant brat! How dare you speak to me like this? Without an invitation, you still dare to act like a human in front of this young master. Let me ask you, this young master has taken a liking to the clothes on that girl of yours. Get her, take it off right now. Take it off right now." The moment Sima Shang said this, the entire hall instantly fell silent. Wasn't this a little too much? Even the girl following Sima Shang widened her eyes. "I only said that I had taken a liking to the clothes. You only need to ask where exactly it was made or where you bought it. How could you speak like that?" Now, he actually wanted a young lady to take off her clothes in front of everyone. That was no longer just taking a liking to the clothes, but the person. Did he want to get both the clothes and the person? In reality, this was exactly what Sima Shang was planning. He had already noticed Qian Sun's beauty, and his lustful thoughts had arisen. However, when he saw that Jun Moxie's temperament was extraordinary, he did not dare to act rashly. Instead, he used the excuse of befriending to probe. However, he discovered that not only did the other party not have an invitation, they didn't even know what an invitation meant at this moment. The person who didn't know about the invitation could only be an insignificant person without any influence. Thus, he immediately had a devious thought. In Sima Shang's opinion, as long as he threatened the other party, he would definitely be able to scare the other party into submission. Then, he would be able to bring this stunning little beauty all the way to the heavenly south region. With this little beauty's beauty, she would definitely be a big attraction and give him a lot of face. In fact, it wouldn't be a big deal even if he killed that pretty boy. Even if the other party had a force behind him, it would definitely be an insignificant one. With his identity as a peak profound sky expert, Sima De was confident that he could easily settle the matter by killing 1 or 2 people. Jun Moxie's face was instantly covered with a layer of killing intent. He didn't want to stir up trouble, but trouble came knocking on his door. There was no door to fortune or disaster, but he brought it upon himself. Da Xiao's eyes instantly turned cold as he looked at the peak expert of Tianxian, Sima Shang, and asked, "Are you sure about what you've just said?" Sima Shang was an expert of Tianxian after all, so he naturally had the vigilance of an expert. So he was intimidated by the other party's imposing aura and inexplicably felt a chill run down his spine. However, he looked at the purple invitation card in his hand, and his courage suddenly grew. He lightly knocked the bronze invitation card on the table and said with a cold smile, "What? Pretty boy, do you still have something to say?" He snorted and said, "Within the radius of 1,000 miles north of Tianxiang, the words of I, Sima Shang, are the words of the golden mouth. Do you dare to defy me?" Jun Moxie laughed lightly, and his face was filled with a biting cold, killing intent. The words of the golden mouth? It's actually the words of the golden mouth. The so-called words of the golden mouth are actually asking a girl to take off her clothes in public. Today, I've really broadened my horizons. Qian Sun's Serpent Queen didn't open her mouth to speak. In fact, she didn't even move an inch. She only smiled faintly and allowed Jun Moxie to deal with this matter. If this had happened in the past, then this self-proclaimed words of the golden mouth would have already been turned into a corpse according to the Snake King's temperament. In fact, Sima Shang would have even killed his way to his hometown and turned it upside down. Blood would have flowed like a river. In fact, Sima Shang wouldn't even be able to vent his anger. However, with Jun Moxie by her side, Qian Sun didn't reveal a single bit of her anger on the surface, even though she was furious in her heart. Everything would be left to the man to deal with. Just because I'm already his woman, he'll be the one to decide everything about me. At this time, the other Sky Xian experts in the hall also hesitantly stood up. Everyone felt that Sima Shang's actions were unpleasant to the eye. However, they were afraid of the other party's might, so they didn't dare to voice their anger. One of them said, "Lord Sima, we're all outside. If there's any misunderstanding, we can just explain it to each other and laugh about it." Even if there's a feud that needs to be settled, we could just kill each other on the spot. But forcing a girl to take off her clothes in public like this is a bit too much. Sima Xiang's eyes turned cold, and he said in a deep voice, "Oh, you're implying that you're teaching me how to act." That Tianxian expert was instantly enraged, and he said, "Lord Sima, you're a peak expert of Tianxian, and at the same time, you're also an invited person with a purple invitation card. How can I dare to say the word teach?" However, right now, we're all going to congratulate Lord Monarch on the opening of the mansion. If Lord Monarch finds out about this, I'm afraid it won't be good. What kind of person is Lord Monarch? Why would he care about such a small matter? Sima Xiang harumphed, but when the Tianxian expert mentioned Lord Monarch, he obviously restrained himself. However, he still didn't want to let go of Jun Moxie and Xinshang. Just looking at these beauties in front of him was enough to make his heart burn, not to mention hugging them in his arms. What made him the happiest was that these beauties didn't have any powerful background behind them. How could this pretty boy in front of him be worthy of such a beauty? Only I, Master Sima, am worthy of such luck with women. Jun Moxie laughed coldly, and suddenly, Ling Ling said, "Since you want my woman to take off her clothes, then what are you waiting for? Come over." Jun Daxiao maintained his sitting posture, and suddenly he opened his right hand, and a strong suction force appeared. Although this suction force was strong, it was very concentrated, and its target was only Sima Xiang. Even those who were close to Sima Xiang could not feel the wind at all. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the previously arrogant Tianxian expert, Sima Xiang, was lifted into the air without any chance to resist and slowly floated towards Jun Moxie. Sima Xiang's face was filled with extreme fear, but he couldn't say a single word. Jun Moxie's extreme spatial confinement had already reached a state where he couldn't even move a single strand of hair on his body, much less speak. Everyone's faces changed. Looking at Jun Moxie's slightly raised right hand, and then looking at Sima Xiang's body that was slowly flying in the air, everyone couldn't help but feel as if they were dreaming. High in the air, and the target was the body of a peak Tianxian expert. What kind of profound cultivation level was this? This level of cultivation had long surpassed the knowledge of everyone present, and it was a godly technique that no one had ever heard of before. When an expert made a move, it was easy to tell. Sima Xiang, who was in the middle of the situation, understood that he had met with an iron plate this time. Just when he was feeling proud of himself, he was restrained by the other party, and he didn't even have the chance to retaliate. Although he didn't know what kind of technique the other party was using, such a person was definitely not someone he could afford to offend. But although he was panicking, he still had a trump card in his hands and was confident that the other party would not harm him because he had an invitation from the evil monarch on him. Purple invitation. In this world, there were very few people who dared to go against the legendary evil monarch. Although this gigolo was impressive, and his strength was unfathomable, even if he was from the three holy lands, he might not dare to offend the evil monarch who was at the peak of his power. Sima Xiang's body floated past the three tables between them, landing in front of the table that Jun Moxie and Sima Xiang were sitting at. The moment his feet touched the ground, Sima Xiang could feel that he had regained his ability to move. Clearly, the other party had dispelled that strange power from before. Now, this Fort Lord Sima, who is known as the Golden Mouth and Jade Words, kneel down for me. Kneel down immediately. Jun Moxie glared at him, and a heaven-shaking aura surged out. Sima Xiang only felt that his body that had just regained its ability to move, and with the weight of a mountain pressing down on his body, he had no way to resist at all. His legs went soft, and with a pu-tong sound, he knelt down in front of the table. "Now, tell me, do you still want my woman to take off her clothes for you?" Jun Moxie stretched out a leg and hooked Sima Xiang's chin with the tip of his foot, lifting his face up. Then, he lightly tapped Sima Xiang's face twice with his shoe, letting out two crisp sounds. His face was filled with killing intent and a hint of mockery as he asked slowly. This was an insult, an absolute insult. but no one present felt that it was too abrupt. With such shocking methods, how could the other party be polite to Sima Shang, who dared to humiliate his woman? This was already a little too lenient. Just now, I had eyes but failed to recognize a mountain and spouted nonsense. But killing someone is just a matter of nodding my head. Could it be that you really dare to kill me? Sima Shang's face was pale white, and cold sweat poured down his forehead. But he still grabbed onto the last straw that could save his life and held on with all his might. Until now, you're still so sure that I won't dare to kill you? I really don't know where your confidence comes from. Since you have such guts, I'll happily send you on your way. The road to the Yellow Springs is long. Have a safe journey. Jun Moxie raised his eyebrows and looked at Sima Shang in front of him with a truly amused expression. When this fellow said that he wanted Qian Sun to take off her clothes, Jun Moxie had already sentenced him to death in his heart. Jun Dashao really didn't know that there was anyone in this world that he didn't dare to kill, even if the other party was the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters. As long as he could get rid of them, he would do so immediately, let alone a mere Sima Shang, a trash that wasn't much stronger than an ant. Chapter 1054. A Guest of the Evil Monarch. Jun Moxie narrowed his eyes and furrowed his brows. I wonder what kind of evil monarch has such power. Am I not allowed to kill his guest? Evil monarch. Sima Shang straightened his neck and said in a somewhat arrogant manner, I admit that you are indeed strong. But no matter how strong you are, can you be stronger than the evil monarch, Lord Jun Moxie? Evil monarch, Lord Jun Moxie? Jun Moxie was stunned, and he rubbed his nose involuntarily. Turning around, he looked at Qian Sun. Qian Sun almost burst out laughing as she hurriedly turned her head to the side. F***CK. This daddy's real body is right here, and this brat actually dares to use this daddy's name to bully me, using his own power to force his own wife to take off her clothes. This is no longer just a F***king joke. The invitation in your hands is from the evil monarch, Jun Moxie? Jun Moxie's expression turned ugly. That's right, Sima Shang replied gleefully. From the looks of it, even though this person was strong, he still could not afford to offend the evil monarch. He could not help but raise his head. Hurry and let go of me. I'm a guest invited by the evil monarch, and the invitation in my hands is made of copper. Do you know what this means? Jun Moxie did not bother with him anymore. With a casual wave of his hand, the copper invitation that Sima Shang was holding tightly in his hands instantly appeared in Jun Moxie's hands. Looking at it carefully, he could not help but shake his head with a bitter smile. Qian Sun also leaned over curiously. On the back of the invitation, there were some small words. 15th of June, the evil monarch manor will be established. The monarch will rule the world and unify the pugilistic world. The evil monarch manor will be established? Jun Moxie furrowed his brows. In that instant, he already understood what was going on. This must be the work of Mei Shuiyan. In today's world, the person who understood Jun Moxie the most was Mei Shuiyan. After Mei Shuiyan brought the fragments of the spirit vein back to Tian Fa, everyone in Tian Fa had their strength increased by a considerable amount. And Mei Shuiyan had also confirmed that the Jun family's current strength was enough to deal with any unforeseen circumstances. If he continued to remain silent and recuperate and build up his strength, it would truly be a waste of God's gifts. The most important thing was that the war for seizing the heavens had come to a critical juncture. So, this was the best time to open the manor. The 3 holy lands would have to suffer in silence. Moreover, they wouldn't dare to make any moves. In fact, they would have to put on a smiling face to please the Jun family. Another reason was that Jun Moxie was now in the Misty Mansion. The Misty Mansion was a powerful force. So how powerful was its intelligence network? How could he not suspect Jun Moxie's identity? How could he not investigate? But if the evil monarch were to open the manor in such a high-profile manner, then no matter how many suspicions there were about Jun Moxie in the Misty Mansion, no one would suspect that Imo Junyi was actually Jun Moxie. But other than Jun Moxie, there was no one else who would have the mysterious methods that Jun Moxie had, since the evil monarch was currently in the Xian continent, preparing for the grand opening of the manor. Why would he appear in the Misty Mansion? This was also the greatest cover for Jun Moxie to successfully carry out his infiltration. Furthermore, in the entire Tian Fa forest, among the direct descendants of the Jun family, only Mei Shuyan had the courage to take on this responsibility. Only she had the qualifications to make such a decision on behalf of Jun Moxie. Furthermore, Mei Shuyan understood the pride in Jun Moxie's heart better than anyone else. That day, he retreated to Tian Fa because the Jun family had to face the threat of the three Holy Lands. He had no choice but to retreat. If Jun Moxie had to live under the guise of Tian Fa for the rest of his life, then Jun Moxie would definitely not be willing. Jun Moxie might be able to accept temporary protection, but he would definitely not accept living under someone else's charity for the long term. The moment the forces of the Tian Fa forest put the cart before the horse and decided that the Jun family had to stay in Tian Fa, then that would be the time when the relationship between the Tian Fa forest and Jun Moxie would be completely broken, because Jun Moxie would establish his own faction sooner or later. As the young madam of the Jun family and the #1 Beast King of Tian Fa, Mei Shuyan had been conflicted over this problem for a long time. Finally, she resolutely made this decision. After discussing with the 8 Beast Kings, Mei Shuyan confirmed this decision, established the evil monarch manor, and merged the entire Tian Fa into the evil monarch manor. In other words, the evil monarch manor would be in charge of everything. This way, the reorganized forces would no longer be led by the Jun family, but by Jun Moxie. This decision was the best way to avoid all conflicts, because the rise of the Tian Fa forest beasts was completely reliant on Jun Moxie alone. Tian Fa's success or failure depended on one person. This sentence was the truth. Jun Moxie was fully deserving of being called the savior of the Tian Fa forest. But only Mei Shuyan could make this decision, and only she could do it. No one else could. Even Jun Mo Xie himself couldn't do it. If this decision was made by Jun Moxie himself, no matter what his original intentions were, there would be the intention of forcing him to repay the kindness. Even if he did not request for the Tian Fa forest to submit, in the eyes of the Tian Fa forest beasts, he would still want to leave the Tian Fa forest. The only suitable candidate was Mei Shuyan. So Mei Shuyan's decision to establish the evil monarch manor at this time might seem reckless, and even Jun Moxie himself did not know about it, but it was a win-win situation for everyone. If Jun Moxie knew about it in advance, no matter what reaction he gave, it would not be good, since they had already decided to establish the evil monarch manor and announce to the world that the Jun family and Tian Fa had officially merged into one. There was naturally a need for a grand ceremony. Thus, things developed all the way until it became what it was today, especially when Fatty Tang heard about this matter and used the wealth of the world to interfere. This caused the matter of the evil monarch manor to become more and more intense, stirring up the entire world. As of now, although the evil manor had yet to officially open its doors, its momentum was unparalleled. Compared to the 3 Holy Lands, it was in no way inferior. And the most ridiculous thing was that everything was decided at the last minute. So right now, Jun Moxie's heart was filled with all sorts of emotions. Who would have thought that he would unknowingly become one of the 5 strongest forces in the world? In fact, he might even become one of the strongest forces. Although Tian Fa might still be lacking true experts, such as Saint Venerables and above, but Tian Fa's foundations were the strongest in the world. With a heaven-defying monster like Jun Moxie who could refine pills, Jun Moxie was confident that he could definitely create the strongest army made up of Saint Venerables. Jun Moxie sighed softly. He deeply understood Mei Shuyan's painstaking efforts. Mei Shuyan's actions could be said to be using all her strength and abandoning everything just to help him. Even the slightest bit of his emotions had been taken into consideration. To be able to have such a peerless beauty in this world, to be able to wholeheartedly think of him, What more could he ask for? At this moment, the killing intent in Jun Moxie's heart dissipated. He didn't even want to kill Sima Shang anymore, because right now, his heart was filled with gratitude and happiness. All right, seeing that the evil monarch is about to be established, I'll give you some face. You've also said that it's not too much to kill. Then kneel down properly and kowtow to my wife 9 times. If you say you're wrong 9 times, you can scram. Jun Mo. Xie casually tossed the invitation card onto the table. It embedded itself deeply into the surface of the table until it was level with the surface. I'm wrong. Sima Shang hardened his stance. You've already greatly offended the evil monarch, and you still want me to kowtow to you? If you're willing to let me go today, that's fine. But if not, humph. He pointed with his big hand and said, even if you can kill me, these people here are all going to congratulate Lord Monarch. If Lord Monarch finds out what you have done, that you once made things difficult for his guests, and even killed them, kid, can you imagine what will happen to you? You might be strong, but can you be stronger than the 3 Holy Lands? Sima Shang's request had obviously been lowered by a lot. He could already tell that the person in front of him was not someone he could afford to offend. He didn't dare to ask for the little beauty anymore. All he wanted was to be able to leave this place safely. After all, this was his territory. If he really knelt and kowtowed to a girl and begged for forgiveness, he would really have no face left. The Snake King couldn't help but laugh out loud. She was overjoyed. That Fort Lord Sima, do you know how lucky you are to be able to keep your life today? What face do you still want? I'd originally planned to not make a single sound from start to end, but you're really... Sima Shang continued to speak forcefully. No matter who it is, in front of the evil monarch's golden face, you have to give him face. Although your Xian cultivation is much stronger than mine, but in the eyes of the evil monarch, you are nothing. Sima Shang's words successfully ignited the killing intent in Jun Moxie's heart. In this world, how many people were using his name to bully the good? I didn't kill them, but they died because of me. If I can't get rid of this scourge, how can I be at ease? Haha, what a joke. Jun Moxie raised his head and laughed, his killing intent surging. In front of this venerable one, you actually dare to use my name to threaten me and my woman? Sima Shang, you dog bastard, you're really awesome, ah? Before he even finished speaking, a hand had already reached out and grabbed Sima Shang's right arm. With a light twist, the sound of bones cracking rang out like beans being fried rang out. With just this light twist, all the bones on the right side of Sima Shang's body had been completely shattered. But even this kind of pain was not enough to overcome the shock in his heart. Shock. Sima Shang's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. In front of this venerable one, you actually dare to use my name to threaten me and my woman. Chapter 1055. It wasn't that Sima Shang didn't understand, but he didn't dare to think about it. Right now, he only wished that time could stop at this moment. The others weren't fools, and they instantly understood. In that instant, everyone's faces turned pale as they looked at Jun Moxie in fear. This youth in front of them was actually the legendary Evil Monarch. That's right, the legendary Evil Monarch was Jun Moxie of the Tianxiang Jun family, and that Jun Sunshao was also not that old, not even 20 years old. It was said that this person was extremely handsome and suave, like a handsome young master in the mortal world. Could it really be him? At this time, Sima Shang finally let out a wretched cry. The bone-piercing pain that seemed to spread to his central nervous system had awakened this fellow who didn't want to face reality. Lord Jun, please spare me, ah. Sima Shang's body trembled uncontrollably. Never in his wildest dreams had he imagined that his luck would actually be this bad. He'd used the name of the evil monarch to bully others, but in the end, the person he met was actually the evil monarch himself. This kind of luck was truly King heaven-defying. I wonder how many sins my ancestors had committed for me to meet with such a thing. Junimo Xie's face was cold, and he completely ignored Sima Shang's pleas. With a light flick of his wrist, he did not move from his original position. With a sudden kick, Sima Shang's tall and sturdy body was sent flying with a loud bang. Sima Xiang's body did not even have the time to let out a scream before he was sent flying. The trajectory of his flight was actually not in a straight line. Instead, he actually made a turn in midair and flew out of the entrance of the restaurant. In the distance, everyone could see a loud bang as he exploded like a firework. Flesh and blood instantly rained down from the sky. His entire body was instantly smashed into pieces, and not even a single piece of bone was left intact. It was truly a body smashed into pieces. If anyone dares to use the name of the evil monarch manner to swindle and bully the innocent, Sima Xiang will be the example. Jun Moxie, said Langlang. Previously, the other Jianghu heroes did not collude with Sima Xiang and even try to stop him. So, of course, Jun Moxie would not vent his anger on others. But everyone kept quiet out of fear. Some of the more timid ones even began to tremble. Jun Moxie's name had already resounded throughout the entire Xian continent. Everyone knew that this handsome and elegant young master was a peerless devil monarch who killed without batting an eye. And it would be more appropriate to describe him as a peerless evil monarch. Today, seeing him in person, he felt that his reputation was not as good as meeting him in person, and meeting him in person was even better than his reputation. He was truly a peerless savage. Jun Moxie stood up slowly. Everyone, I thank you for coming to congratulate me on my opening ceremony. I wish you all a safe journey. If we are fated, we shall meet again in Tiannan. After saying that, he pulled Qian Sun's slender hand and looked coldly at Sima Xiang's followers. How was the reputation of this Fort Lord Sima's forces? Reporting to Lord Jun, Sima Xiang and his subordinates have an extremely vile reputation. It's only because his cultivation has reached the peak of Tianxian that no one can control him. That Tianxian expert who had stood out to stop Sima Xiang earlier said respectfully, "Oh, so that's the case. Since that's the case, there's no need for an evil force to exist." Jun Moxie said lightly. After saying that, he pulled Qian Sun's hand and disappeared from the restaurant without a trace. An ingot of silver fluttered through the air after a long while, and gently fell on the table where Jun Mo Xie had been sitting. It seemed as if someone had gently put it down and didn't make the slightest sound. Even after Jun Moxie and Qian Sun had left, everyone was still standing respectfully, not daring to sit down. Evil monarch. We actually saw the legendary overlord of this generation with our own eyes, the evil monarch who stood at the peak of the continent. The few Tianxian experts were so agitated that their bodies were trembling, because not only had they seen the evil monarch himself, they had even received an order from him. There's no need for an evil force to exist like this. This sentence of the evil monarch was undoubtedly an order, and it was an order that was given to everyone here. The fate of Sima Xiang's forces was already decided. They would definitely destroy it and divide it among themselves. This was the meaning of the evil monarch's words. This was equivalent to bestowing them with a huge fortune. The effect of the evil monarch's order far surpassed that of any other monarch in the continent. From a moment the evil monarch said those words, Sima Xiang's forces were already destined to be completely destroyed. If that evil force that the evil monarch had labeled as a calamity could still exist in the world, wouldn't that be a slap to the face of a peerless expert like the evil monarch? And it would be a slap from their combined forces. Who would dare? No one would be able to bear the consequences of such a thing. Even the three holy lands would not dare. Everyone's eyes turned bloodshot. If this matter could not be completed, how would they face the evil monarch when they reached Tiannan? Even if, when they reached there, they might not even have the chance to meet the evil monarch, countless pairs of bloodshot eyes turned to look at Sima Xiang's followers. Those ferocious-looking men instantly collapsed to the ground, especially that woman who had been eyeing Snake King's clothes. She had already fallen limply to the ground. Who would have thought that the cause of this entire matter was just a woman's love for fashion, and it had actually caused her entire faction to fall into an abyss of eternal damnation? Thus, it was not a crime for women to like fashion, but they still had to act within their means. if they forced their boyfriend to spend all his fortune to buy so-called fashion, then that kind of fashion was better off not having it. In an instant, a wave of flattery rang out. Look at him. He's truly the evil monarch, ah? He even had to pay for a meal in a hotel, not willing to take even the slightest bit of advantage. What a noble heart, ah! Paying for a meal was originally a matter of course. But for Jun Dashao to pay for a meal, it had actually become a chivalrous act. How much he sympathized with the suffering of the people, what a righteous act of punishing the evil and upholding the good. How chivalrous was this? In the afternoon of the same day, Sima Shang's faction was completely destroyed by the combined forces of a few other factions. From then on, it disappeared from this world. Because the evil monarch had said that there was no longer a need for this faction to exist, this news caused Jun Dashao, who had originally intended to take a stroll in Tianxiang City, to immediately give up on that idea. Jun Moxie brought Snake King with him, and the two of them rushed towards Tianan City without stopping. In order to increase their speed, Jun Dashao even carried Snake King on his back and used the yin-yang escape art to its maximum speed, directly soaring through the air. In front of them was a vast expanse of green water, and the Tianan Lake that they hadn't seen for a long time appeared before their eyes. Snake King's eyes were starting to hurt from the wind as he sprinted. He couldn't help but exclaim in admiration, "Brother-in-law, your speed is truly shocking. Big Sister is also famous for her speed, but against your speed, even Big Sister would have to concede defeat." Jun Mo Xiao laughed loudly and leaped forward. Stepping on the waves, he muttered, "What is speed? Ha, lass, I'll let you experience it today." Roaming the North Sea in the morning and Kangwu in the evening, the green snake in my sleeves is bold and bold. Passing through Tianxiang 3 times without being recognized, singing loudly as I fly over the Tianan Lake. This must be the so-called poem. Brother-in-law is truly cultured to be able to come up with such a good poem. Snake King had a look of worship on his face as he said, "But it's a little hard to express, although I'm a green snake, but I'm on your back, not in your sleeves there." Jun Dashao opened his mouth awkwardly, and his face turned slightly red. It wasn't because Snake King wasn't in his sleeves, but because Snake King was praising him. Cultured? Was this a compliment? Although Jun Dashao's skin was thick, there was still a limit to it. Although this was plagiarism, it couldn't be described as cultured, right? After flying past Tianan Lake for a day and a night, Tianan City was already in sight. Jun Moxie suddenly discovered that Tianan City was completely different from its usual desolation. Banners were fluttering at the top of the city walls, as if a grand festival was going on. At the same time, there were waves of whistling sounds coming from afar, as if it could topple the mountains and overturn the seas, flying over Tianan City. Jun Dashao couldn't help but be shocked as he took a closer look. He couldn't help but rub his eyes, not daring to believe what he had just seen. The southern part of Tianan City occupied an area of more than 1,000 miles, and there were at least tens of thousands of snow-white tents. It was as if in the middle of summer, snow had suddenly fallen all over the ground. There was also a huge flag fluttering in the wind in front of it. Just by looking at the height of the flagpole, it was at least 500 feet tall. It was a flagpole made entirely from a towering tree that towered into the sky. The bottom part of this so-called flagpole seemed to be so thick that even 20 burly men might not be able to wrap their arms around it. On that huge flag, there were 16 large words written. Every word was about the size of a house, shining with a golden light as it danced in the air, exuding the aura of a monarch descending upon the world. When young Master Jun saw these words, he nearly somersaulted and fell from the sky. Monarch descending upon the world, evil monarch. For thousands of years, unify the pugilistic world. What the F***CK? Could it be that some dear friend had transmigrated again? This kind of slogan really made anyone who saw it involuntarily think of the legendary sect leader Dongfang. Even Jun Dashao couldn't help but feel a pain in his crotch and an itch in his anus in the distance. Countless members of the evil monarch manor, dressed in all kinds of clothes, were eagerly receiving the guests. There were several groups of people busying themselves in all directions, but it seemed like they were still struggling to keep up. There were simply too many guests, practically like a tidal wave, coming in wave after wave. Chapter 1056. During this period of time, the charity project that Jun Wooey was presiding over was getting smoother and smoother with the support of unlimited financial and material resources. Countless lonely boys and girls were all taken in by him, and then their food and accommodation were arranged together. The block in Jun Wooey's heart also disappeared a lot. Han Yin Yao was naturally very happy. The shadow in the past, when she saw the pure and satisfied smiles of these children, had already disappeared without a trace, accompanying her husband. Her face was full of happiness, and her belly was slightly bulging. It seemed that she was already pregnant. With his swoosh, Jun Moxie suddenly appeared in front of Jun Wooey and Han Yin Yao. Emocia. Jun Wooey called out in surprise, and then immediately arranged for the disciple beside him to lead the guests to the guest room, which was the white tent, and then quickly came up to greet them. Jun Moxie was stunned at first, and then his eyes stayed straight on Han Yin Yao's belly, until Han Yin Yao blushed and lowered her head. Suddenly, Jun Daxiao was furious. Third uncle, what's going on? Jun Wooey was confused. What's going on? You still want to lie to me? Jun Daxiao pretended to be filled with righteous indignation. Who on earth hit my third aunt's belly until it's swollen? This is simply bullying. No, I'll go find him. How dare he bully the Jun family? This is simply intolerable. See if I don't teach him a lesson. Han Yin Yao suddenly blushed, and if it weren't for her hands covering her belly, she would almost have nowhere to put them. But Jun Daxiao came up to her with a face full of concern. Third aunt, are you in pain now? Are you okay? Don't worry. I have the best medicine. Tell me who it is. I'll go and beat him up. How dare he bully my third aunt? He must have eaten the heart of a bear and the guts of a leopard. I can't let him off. Han Yin Yao's face was burning hot, and she didn't know how to answer. She could only stomp her feet, as if she wanted to dig a hole and hide in it. Bang! Jun Wooey kicked Jun Moxie's butt and scolded jokingly. Damn it. Kid, you haven't been taught a lesson for so long. Is your butt itching or something? How dare you cause trouble as soon as you come back? It's fine if you take care of me in a roundabout way, but you're still flirting with your third aunt. It's really infuriating. Third Master Jun was momentarily confused by Jun Daxiao. At first, he thought that his nephew was young and inexperienced, so he didn't know about human relations. But after thinking about it for a while, he realized that this kid was well-versed in medicine. How would he not know about pregnancy? Even if he didn't know about it, he would have seen a pregnant woman before. Then, he recalled what he said just now, and it was clear that there was a hidden meaning in his words. He was really trying to take care of his wife. Not to mention anything else, if he really saw his family being harmed, Jun Moxie's actions would definitely not be this cheeky. He would have directly F***ed him. Since Third Master Jun understood everything, how could he still be polite to this mischievous kid? Naturally, he kicked his butt. Jun Moxie cried out in pain. He touched his butt and turned around. He smiled mischievously and said, Third uncle, don't be angry. I haven't seen you for so many days, and I really miss you. That's why I'm joking with you and third aunt. If we don't talk and laugh, how can we have fun? Well, if you really want to vent your anger, at most, when I have children, you can go and flirt with them. Anyway, I don't really mind. Jun Wooey's face suddenly turned green. He raised his palm and chased Jun Moxie to beat him up. He was panting as he beat him up. Kid, you don't mind, but can an old man like me do it? I'm a proper elder and a father-in-law. Flirting with my daughter-in-law? What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Jun Moxie roared with laughter and dragged Qian Sun's Serpent Queen away, disappearing like a wisp of smoke. Apart from Third Master Jun, there were really very few people who could chase the evil monarch away like a rabbit. Brilliant, truly brilliant, huh? In the distance, what was originally the encampment of the evil monarch manor's outer manor had already been transformed into a stretch of pavilions. The walls were all made of huge green stones, and it was abnormally simple and heavy. With a single glance, it gave off a solemn and dignified feeling. as if it could swallow the mountains and rivers. At the entrance, Mei Shuyan, Guan Qinghan, Dugu Xiaoyi, and Han Yinming were all dressed in snow-white robes, with a light red belt tied around their waists. Their faces were filled with gentle smiles as they welcomed Jun Moxie's arrival. The four girls' eyes were actually filled with the same longing, the same burning passion. They were all trying their best to suppress the excitement in their hearts, but Dugu Xiaoyi and Han Yinming's eyes were already turning red. They had already received news of Jun Moxie's return and had specially come to the entrance to welcome him. Behind a window, Princess Ling Ming's pair of watery eyes stared blankly at the approaching Jun Moxie. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she gazed at him. "Big brother Moxie." Dugu Xiaoyi yelled and rushed over, crying and laughing at the same time. The little lass had already jumped over from afar, like a swallow flying into the forest. Before Jun Moxie could regain his senses from the four beautiful faces, a fiery figure had already rushed into Da Xiao's embrace. "Why did you take so long to come back?" "Boo-hoo, I'm so lonely here. I wanted to play mahjong to relieve my boredom, but I didn't think that I would lose every time I played, every match, every day. I lost all my private stash, boo." Dugu Xiaoyi pounced on Da Xiao's body like an octopus, her two little hands continuously patting his shoulders and back. She cried even more sadly as she said the last sentence. "No one gave way to me. It's all your fault. It's all your fault. Why didn't you come back earlier? I wouldn't have lost so badly if you had come back earlier." She cried and cried, but she didn't forget to rub her tear-stained face against his chest. Jun Moxie hugged this lively and adorable little lass, sweating profusely. This lass, is she looking forward to my return, or is she feeling distressed over her private stash? He murmured in his heart, but he still comforted her with his mouth. "And it's all my fault. It's all my fault. No matter how much you lose, it's all on me, husband. I'll pay you double later. If they don't give way to you, I'll take revenge for you later." While Jun Da Xiao was comforting her, he had a shocking discovery. The two of them were now in a state of zero distance, and it seemed like it had only been a few days since they last saw each other. But this little lass had also grown into a young lady. Her originally curvaceous petite body was now even more alluring, shocking, and soul-stirring. It was truly shocking. She had only rubbed against his body a few times, but it had almost made Jun Da Xiao's blood boil. Although it wasn't to the extent of being ready for battle, it was unavoidable that his blood was boiling. Jun Da Xiao couldn't help but roll his eyes. He moved closer to Dugu Xiaoyi's ear and whispered, "Wow, I didn't expect that in just a few days, my Xiaoyi has already grown into a young lady. How is it with your current cooking skills? Do you know how to cook? At least you can cook rice, right? Later on, you have to perform for me. Big brother is looking forward to your cooking." "Ah, you scoundrel, shameless." When Dugu Xiaoyi heard Jun Da Xiao mention her embarrassing situation, she was instantly embarrassed. How could she still care about crying? She suddenly struggled down from his body and ran away. At the same time, she could hear this lass shouting, "Little White, hurry up and bite that scoundrel." At this time, Qian Sun had also rushed over and hugged Mei Shuyan tightly. "Big sister, I missed you guys. Qian Sun, it's you? It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. It's good that you're awake." Mei Shuyan hugged Qian Sun and was extremely emotional. She was almost incoherent and couldn't express what she wanted to say. Her good sister, who had been in the state of the living dead for a long time, had suddenly returned safely. At this moment, Mei Shuyan's heart was bursting with joy. Her sister had returned safe and sound, and that person had also returned at the same time. It was really a double blessing. Jun Moxie slowly walked in front of Guan Qinghan. Guan Qinghan's clear eyes revealed a happy and relieved expression, but she still forced herself to put on a cold expression. However, Jun Da Xiao, whose face was thicker than the city wall, didn't fall for her act. The distance between the two was already very close, and Jun Moxie took half a step closer. The distance between the two seemed to be zero. The usually reserved Guan Qinghan didn't even have time to resist. Jun Da Xiao had already used a voice that gave people goosebumps to hear and said, "Qinghan, you missed me, right? Guan Han suddenly felt a chill down her spine and couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. This guy, why did he want to discuss people as soon as he came back? Really? It seemed that she didn't know what to say. This enemy, you're back? Guan Han's voice was cold. Yes, I'm back. Jun Moxie nodded honestly. Suddenly, he moved close to Guan Han's ear and whispered, Qing Han, can I sleep in your room tonight? I missed you so much these days. Guan Han instantly blushed. She was extremely shy. She suddenly remembered the night when she came to Tiannan. She clenched her teeth and cursed. Damn pervert. Lecher. She turned around and covered her burning face and hurriedly ran away. Jun Moxie laughed complacently. I'll teach you a lesson if you don't show me a cold face every day. Hello, little lowly Han. No, it should be my housewarming girl. Little sister Han, don't forget to tie up my housewarming girl tonight. Strip her and bring her to my bed. I've been looking forward to it for a long time. You must do what you said. It's been a long time. This young master is very free today, so we might as well do it today. Han Yinming had a pleasantly surprised expression on her face and was about to come forward to greet him. But she hadn't even gotten close when she heard this old saying. She immediately twisted her slender waist and ran away. This scoundrel still hasn't forgotten about this. Damn it. He had easily settled another one. Jun Moxie let out a sigh. It seemed that the work of having 3 wives and 4 concubines was quite tiring. The only way to break up their alliance first, and then break through them one by one, was the correct way to attack. Chapter 10:57. 3 of the 4 beauties had already left, and only the sharpest one was left. Turning his head, he discovered that Mei Shuiyin and Qian Sun were standing side by side, their beautiful eyes staring at him. Qian Sun giggled and suddenly pushed Mei Shuiyin's back. Mei Shuiyin was caught off guard and subconsciously stumbled. Naturally, although Qian Sun's push was sudden, she didn't use much strength. With Mei Shuiyin's cultivation, not to mention a light push, even if she used 10,000 times more strength, she still might not fall. But young Master Jun, who was the most adept at seizing every opportunity, immediately put on an extremely nervous expression. With a big stride, he flew forward and hugged her tightly. What's wrong? He asked in a panicked and extremely nervous manner. Shuiyin, are you all right? Did you hurt yourself? Qian Sun, what's wrong with you? Is there anyone who makes a fuss like you? If you hurt Shuiyin, I'll teach you a lesson later. As he shouted and asked about her well-being, his hands and feet didn't stop moving, touching here and there. Mei Shuiyin's face and ears instantly turned red. With great difficulty, she struggled out of someone's embrace, but she was already panting. She had actually forgotten all the words she had planned to say. A burst of snickering came from the side. When she turned around to look, she saw that the perpetrator, Snake King Qian Shuinya, was no longer there. Instead, a few pretty faces peeked out from behind the bushes at the side of the courtyard. They were sneakily looking in their direction, as if they were enjoying a show. When they saw Mei Shuiyan's gaze sweeping over them, they giggled and dispersed. You! Why are you making a fuss the moment you come back? Stop making a fuss. Mei Shuiyin seemed to be a little displeased as she controlled her aura. Yes. I'll listen to my dear wife. If my dear wife doesn't want me to make a fuss, I won't. Jun Dashao actually obediently stopped. Mei Shuiyin blushed again. She tried to cover it up and said, Are you satisfied with this, that opening a mansion? Jun Moxie immediately stopped smiling and let out a long sigh. He looked deeply at Mei Shuiyin and said, Shuiyin, you really put in a lot of effort for me. Mei Shuiyin smiled gently and said, When 2 people get along, it's important to know each other. Do you think I don't know what kind of person you are? Moreover, you once mentioned to me that day that you wanted to be the law enforcer of the Jianghu. She rolled her eyes, revealing a mischievous smile, and said, Now, don't you already have that kind of ability? Law enforcer of the Jianghu. Jun Moxie slowly muttered. Suddenly, his eyes focused, and he said indifferently, The whole world will eventually obey my law enforcer. In this world, there are always things that can't be imagined, but there is nothing that can't be done. I believe You will definitely be able to do it. Mei Xian looked at him tenderly, her eyes filled with trust. June Moxie smiled slightly and suddenly looked at Mei Xian playfully and said, "My wife, but this is a story for the future. Now that the mansion is open, shouldn't we first consummate our marriage, then talk about other things?" Mei Xian didn't expect Jun Daxiao to change the topic so quickly. He was actually able to change two completely different topics in an instant. For a moment, she couldn't hold back her embarrassment. However, Mei Xian wasn't Guan Qinghan or Duga Xiaoi. Her small hand quickly reached out and twisted a certain someone's waist fiercely. She turned him back and forth 360 degrees before saying, "How was your trip to the Misty Mansion?" She actually changed the topic in a hurry. Cough, cough. This trip can be considered to be successful. I've already achieved my goal. June Moxie smiled awkwardly and coughed a few times. He felt a little guilty. His goal had indeed been achieved, and there were quite a few unexpected gains. However, one of the gains seemed to be unspeakable, awkward. You're really capable. You even got the 7-colored holy fruit? Mei Xian stared at his expression and asked slowly. Cough, cough, I got it. How could this evil monarch fail? Not to mention the 7-colored holy fruit, you even got the 7-colored holy tree? Mei Xian's voice became even slower. Cough, cough. I got it. Isn't that so? This evil monarch will naturally get it. Then, the little beauty in the Misty Mansion. Did you get it as well? Mei Xian's voice suddenly sped up. It was as if she was burying one's ears while stealing a bell with lightning speed. Mei Xian was very intelligent. When she saw this guy stuttering, she knew that he was feeling guilty. But what else could he be feeling guilty about? Therefore, there was basically no need to think about it. Cough, cough. I got it. This evil monarch's literary talent is outstanding and peerless. Naturally, I got the beauty. Jun Daxiao nodded his head repeatedly. He was proud of himself and started to boast. Suddenly, he realized something. And he was instantly dumbfounded and swallowed the second half of his sentence. However, it seemed that everything that should be said and everything that should not be said had been said. Mei Xian's expression suddenly became unfriendly. Did you really get the beauty? That. I really got it. I don't want to flirt with beauties, but beauties love heroes. This is an unchangeable truth. Jun Daxiao lowered his head guiltily and made a gesture of admitting his guilt. Sooner or later, Miao Xiao Miao would be brought out, and Mei Xian would know about it sooner or later. It was better to confess now and hope that he could get leniency. At least, he wouldn't have to wait until the end of the day to be caught unprepared. June Moxie still knew what was more important here. I don't want to flirt with beauties, but beauties love heroes. You are really not modest. Mei Xian sighed helplessly. However, this temperament of yours, when can you change it? Suddenly, her expression turned cold. You made a series of moves just now. You purposely drove them away because you wanted to tell me this, right? June Moxie nodded with a pitiful look on his face. I can't make the decision on this matter either. Why don't you gather everyone and study it together? Mei Xian Langling said, I still have other things to do. You have been rushing all the way. Go in and rest first. Shui? Jun Daxiao wanted to explain a little more, but unfortunately, before he could finish his sentence, Mei Xian had already disappeared. AI, Junimo Xie let out a long sigh. It seemed like things were developing in a rather bad direction. What should he do now? Among all the girls, Mei Xian was one of the easier ones to deal with compared to him. But now, the one who was the easiest to deal with in his estimation had directly left because of jealousy. As for the rest, there was no need to ask. They would definitely have the same reaction. In fact, it might even be a little more intense. Mo Xie Sanner. Along with the call, Dongfang when Xin appeared in front of the door. Mother. Jun Moxie hurriedly took 2 steps forward. Suddenly, he rolled his eyes. I've always been very supportive of me getting a few more wives. If I help to do the work of these women. Dongfang when Xin hugged her son, who she hadn't seen for a long time. Then, she looked at him from left to right, up and down. After a careful look, she said with relief, You are getting better and better. You are indeed a good son of mine." June Moxie didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Was she praising him or herself? What a dilemma! Then Grandpa June also walked out slowly. He stroked his beard and smiled at the door, looking very comforted. After the family chatted for a while, June Moxie arranged the family banquet. Then, he had the time to understand the changes in Tian Fa Forest. If he didn't see it, he wouldn't have known. But the moment he saw it, he was shocked. It was just a name list, but it had shocked the famous evil monarch, Lord June Moxie. Ever since Mei Shuiyin returned, the first thing she did was to increase the strength of the June family with all her might. Right now, Grandpa June had already reached the 3rd level of the Saint Realm under the continuous nourishment of spiritual medicine. Jun Wui was even more terrifying. He had directly rushed to the level of the Holy Emperor. Although Han Yin Yao was not as strong as 3rd Master June, she had also reached the peak of the Saint Realm. She was only one step away from the level of the Holy Emperor. Among the elders of the Jun family, only Jun Dashao's mother, Dongfang Wen Xian, was the weakest. Dongfang Wen Xian had never liked to cultivate Xianqi. Her foundation was also very weak. But with the nourishment of spiritual medicine, she had still reached the 1st level of the Venerable Realm. And Guanqing Han had reached the 3rd level of the Venerable Realm. Han Yinming was very talented and had a high starting point. She had actually reached the peak of the 4th level of the Venerable Realm. As long as her state of mind was right, she could break through to the Saint Realm at any time. As for Dugu Xiaoi, she was simply too lazy. She couldn't calm down and cultivate. Even though Mei Shuiyin had provided her with many opportunities to cultivate, she had only barely reached the 1st level of the Venerable Realm. Now, in the Jun family, Dugu Xiaoi and Dongfang Wen Xian had the lowest cultivation. Even Princess Raima had reached the 2nd level of the Venerable Realm, but among everyone, the one who advanced the most was Jun Mo Xie's personal maid, little Lolita Kerr. This little girl was extremely talented and had a firm mind. Previously, young Master June had given her many miraculous pills. Now that she had accumulated a lot of experience, she had actually advanced all the way to the 2nd level of the Saint Realm. She was only slightly inferior to old Master June. Even the initiator Jun Dashao was a little dumbfounded by such a terrifying result. After all the members of the Jun family had finished leveling up, Mei Shuiyin strengthened the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer, as well as Jun Moxie's assassin team. She increased their strength again. If not for the fact that their meridians had already reached the limit, these people would have made another shocking leap. After all, they had already increased their strength to the limit once before. Now that it had only been a short period of time, their meridians had not recovered to the extent that they could adapt to such a drastic change. If they were to use spiritual medicines again, their meridians would probably explode on the spot. But even so, these 300 people had obtained a rather terrifying result after consuming the medicinal liquid that was diluted from the powder of the Spirit Vein. Right now, among the members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer, there were more than 70 people who were at the same level as the Holy Emperor. There were 124th level saints. The rest were at least at the 3rd level. Chapter 1058. Among the Jun family's forces, there were only 2 people who did not use any elixirs to increase their cultivation, Tian Can and Di Quebec. This was because Jun Mo Xie had solemnly said that their aptitudes weren't good. So, it would be best for them to take the marrow cleansing pill first. Then, they would borrow the strength of the elixirs to enhance their strength. Therefore, these 2 youngsters had been left alone. However, these 2 little fellows were really persevering. Seeing all their companions improve greatly, they were still able to maintain their composure and continue to train by themselves. Every day, they trained themselves to the point where they were hovering between life and death, as if other people's improvements did not affect them at all. Among the people of the Jun family, the one who experienced the greatest increase in strength was the little lowly Kuer. However, The one who experienced the greatest increase in strength was Mei Shui-yin herself. After Mei Shui-yin was baptized by the miraculous effects of the spiritual pulse, she went from the peak of 3rd-level Saint Emperor to 1st-level Saint Venerable. Although the jump was not too big, her strength was like a completely different person from before. Just this force of the Jun family was enough to look down on the world. However, this was not enough to look down on the entire world. However, after calculating the current strength of the Tian Fa forest, the situation was very different. On the Tian Fa forest side, the 8 old beast kings who had suffered from hidden injuries had quickly recovered to their peak after taking the elixirs given by Jun Moxie. Now, with the enhancement of the spirit pulse, they had all rushed to the level of level 2 Saint Venerable. As for Bear Mountain and the rest of the beast kings, they had all advanced to the level of level 1 Holy Emperor. On the other hand, the hundreds of dark beasts under their command who were capable of taking human form had improved by leaps and bounds as well. All of them had reached the 3rd level of the Saint Realm, and it wasn't just 8 or 10 of them. There were over 500 of them. However, it seemed like this was the end of the improvement, because the fragments of the spirit pulse that Mei Shui-yin had brought back had been completely used up. It was said that there were still thousands of Xian beasts in the Tian Fa forest, waiting anxiously. Hearing this uncertain number, Jun Moxie broke out in a cold sweat. It seemed that this power was enough to destroy this world. However, these advancements did not come without a price. All of them had to undergo the test of the heavenly tribulation without exception. In the past half a month, the sky above the Tian Fa forest was filled with thunder and lightning, and it did not dissipate for a long time. There were often scenes where dozens of people went through their heavenly tribulations together. Every single one of them was struck until their faces were covered in dirt. Some of the more serious ones had actually reverted back to their original forms, their bodies covered in wounds, and they were on the brink of death. Bear Mountain's body fat had almost been boiled dry. It could be said that he had narrowly escaped death. It was said that this guy had overworked himself after marrying his wife and suffered from a loss of stamina. Who knew if it was true? Even after using all the safety measures that Jun Moxie had given them, there were still 2 members of the Heaven Destroyer team who were unfortunately destroyed in the midst of their tribulation. As for Tian Fa's Xian beasts, more than a dozen of them were killed, but this ratio was not even worth mentioning when compared to the number of people who successfully went through their heavenly tribulations. Take the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit as an example. The success rate of Xian beasts using this fruit to advance was no more than 20 to 30%. But Tian Fa's Xian beast kings were still willing to take the risk. From this, one could see how dangerous it was to go through a heavenly tribulation and advance. Right now, the failure rate was almost 1 in 100. Jun Moxie was so shocked that he almost fell off his chair when he saw this number with his own eyes. Mei Shui-yin had only brought back 5 or 6 pieces of spirit vein the size of an adult's fist, and she had actually achieved such a glorious result. Glorious was not enough to describe it. It should be a terrifying result, an extremely fantastical result. Oh my God! If I use up all the spirit vein, wouldn't I be able to create an army of over 1 million Saint Venerables? Thinking of this, Jun Moxie was so happy that he almost suffocated. However, thinking about it was just thinking about it. Young Master Jun would not do such a thing that would be so wasteful. Before he could recover from his shock and joy, Jun Dashao had already been picked up by Mei Shui-yin. Then, everyone scattered like birds and beasts. Mei Shui-yin brought Jun Dashao to a small living room. There were a few rooms in the surroundings. These women had also developed a suite of rooms here and lived together, but they were not in the same room. And this living room outside was the same room. This layout was very similar to the layout of the 9 Nether First Young Master's ruins that Jun Dashao had found in Blizzard Silver City. A large living room that extended in all directions, connecting to many rooms. With a PU sound, Jun Moxie was forcefully pressed onto a small stool in front of the table. When the eldest young master raised his head to look, he saw 4 beautiful faces staring at him coldly. They actually had the posture of fourth mother reprimanding her son. Looks like the interrogation was about to officially begin. Mei Shuyan and Guan Qinghan sat in the middle, while Du Xiaoyi and Han Yinming sat on the two sides. It seems like these women have already discussed among themselves. And this doesn't seem to have anything to do with Han Yinming, right? Why did she come here and interfere? Under the stern gaze of four pairs of eyes, Jun Daxiao could not help but shiver. What is this? Are they going to extort a confession through torture? For pairs of cold eyes locked onto Jun Mo Xie's body at the same time. Even with young Master Jun's strength, he felt as if there was no place for him to hide. It can't be, right? Jun Daxiao struggled and said, we're all one family. We're all in the same bed. It's fine to talk about private matters. But why is this girl here? He was naturally referring to Han Yinming. He thought that Du Xiao wouldn't be so shameless after he said those words, and that she wouldn't be able to do anything. But with Guan Qinghan's personality, she would probably be embarrassed and leave. As for Han Yinming, she would probably be angered and leave. If everything went smoothly, she only needed to deal with Mei Shuyan and Du Xiaoyi. That would be much easier because Du Xiaoyi did not even need to deal with them. If a girl said that she did not like Jun Moxie, then she would be angry. Brother Mo Xie is so outstanding, and you don't like him? What else do you want? Only Mei Shuyan would be left, and she would be easy to deal with. However, contrary to his expectations, Guan Qinghan's face turned red, but she didn't move an inch. As for Han Yinming, she snorted coldly, pouted her small mouth, and turned her head away. Surprisingly, she didn't leave in anger. I was careless just now. I forgot to inform you of something, Mei Shuyan said lightly. Madame Han of Blizzard Silver City has entrusted third uncle and third aunt to propose marriage to mother and grandfather. Second Ms. Han, Yinming, is going to be married to you. Grandfather and mother have already agreed to it. Now, Han Yinming is already a member of our Jun family. Du Xiaoyi said proudly. That's right. Now she has to call me sister. This was my only request when mother asked for our opinions. Han Yinming's face turned red, and she rolled her eyes at Du Xiaoyi. She pouted and said, What are you so proud of? You're not even as old as me. Don't be ashamed. Du Xiaoyi said proudly. Our Jun family has a rule that whoever enters the door first is the eldest. What does age have to do with it? I'm your sister anyway. Han Yinming did not say anything. She only looked at Du Xiaoyi angrily. It seemed like these two girls had a lot of fights. You still have the nerve to call yourself sister? What did you not lose the most in a game of mahjong? You actually have the nerve to borrow money from me. Han Yinming retorted sarcastically. Du Xiaoyi gritted her teeth. If I don't borrow money when I lose, how can I win back my losses? You stupid girl. Why don't you help me win some money? I always make such obvious gestures to you, but you don't even give me the cards. You even stepped on my foot until it's swollen. You only have the mouth to talk about others, but you don't have the mouth to talk about yourself. Han Yinming rolled her eyes and turned her head away arrogantly. She untied the purse from her waist and shook it in a triumphant manner. Du Xiaoyi's eyes were about to spit fire. It seemed like she wanted to snatch the purse away. Jun Moxie was instantly dumbfounded. It seemed like not only had he accepted one outside, but he had also accepted one in his own house. He was the last person to know about it. Was it the order of his parents? The words of a matchmaker? So this world also has imperfections. No wonder the four of them welcomed him together when he came back. He had thought that Han Yinming was only here to join in the fun. I almost forgot. Xiao Yi, go and ask Qian Sun, Princess Raimu, and Ku Air to come over. They also have a part in this matter, so they should at least have a right to know. At this moment, Mei Shuyan seemed to have the demeanor of a great general. She was giving commands calmly and dispatching troops. Yes, Du Xiaoyi agreed. She stood up in a valiant and heroic manner and walked out in a high-spirited manner. She was like a vanguard general who had received an order to set off. Cold sweat dripped down Jun Moxie's forehead. This was no longer limited to fourth mother lecturing her son. It had directly evolved into a competition between the seven kingdoms. Not long after, all the girls had arrived. Qian Sun and the others looked at each other when they saw this strange scene. They couldn't understand why this scene was happening. Dear sisters, we all know that Mo Xie is going this time for the sake of everyone's future. Mei Shuyan said lightly. It's because once we Xian practitioners cultivate to the peak, we can prolong our lives, even for thousands of years. However, it's hard for a woman to regain her youth. Beauty ages easily, and youth is fleeting. Even if one is an outstanding beauty now, it's inevitable that beauty will fade away with time. And the main purpose of Mo Xie's trip is to find a kind of elixir that can help us maintain our youth forever. When Mei Shuyan said this, all the girls burst into an uproar. Elixir that can maintain youth forever. Could it be that this legendary thing really exists? Chapter 10:59. If he can't find it, I don't think he will come back. Mei Shuyan still spoke in an indifferent tone. But there's something else I want to make clear. Although Mei Shuyan spoke in a business-like tone, but when the girls couldn't see, Jun Moxie understood and gave Mei Shuyan a grateful look. Mei Shuyan snorted coldly and ignored him, saying, "We sisters have been living together all this time, and we have accepted each other. Although it's not rare for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines, we women still need to accept each other." At this point, the girls all nodded in agreement. But this time, although Mo Xie found the elixir, something that shouldn't have happened in the process of searching for it. Mei Shuyan said lightly, he actually had a relationship with the little princess of the Misty Mansion, Miao Xiao Miao, in private without our consent. Although there are many coincidences in this matter, but it shouldn't have happened, and we sisters should discuss how to deal with this matter. Ah, I see. The girls suddenly understood. So it was because of this matter that they were all gathered together. To put it simply, Jun Daxiao had cheated, but the girls all looked at each other and lowered their heads. No one said a word. If they were the first to speak, what if Jun Daxiao hated them? What would they do? Besides, although they were tacitly accepted by the Jun family, after all, they hadn't officially held a wedding. Now, did they really have the right to say anything or care about anything? But it was undeniable that the girls all felt sour in their hearts at the same time. Almost at the same time, they cursed in their hearts. This womanizer, there are so many beautiful flowers at home that he needs to take care of, but he still goes out and flirts with them. Should he be flirting with them? Or should he be flirting with them? Could it be that the flowers at home were not as fragrant as the wildflowers? It would be a waste not to pick the wildflowers by the roadside. Among the girls, only Duge Xiaoyi and Kurer were somewhat indifferent. Duge Xiaoyi thought, "It seems that this is nothing, right? My father has more than 10 concubines, as well as my second uncle and third uncle. Isn't it normal for a man to have multiple wives and concubines? Why does big brother Mo Xie look like he's in a dilemma? What's wrong with that?" Kuer's thinking was even more exaggerated. Our young master is so outstanding, talented, unrivaled in the world, it's normal for him to attract the favor of women. If those women don't like our young master, then they must be blind. It seemed that these 2 little Lolas didn't even have the slightest bit of jealousy. They even seemed a little proud. As for Princess Raimu, who was sitting on the chair with her head lowered, her mind was in a mess. Why did you call me over? These women are all women that Jun Moxie has acknowledged or his nominal future wives. But he has never said that he accepts me. What should I do? Should I leave this place at once? But after thinking about it for a long time, she still couldn't bear to move. Even if I stay here for a while, I can at least look at him a little longer." Mei Shuyan's words were met with silence. She couldn't help but smile bitterly. She urged, "What should we do? Everyone has to say something, right?" The girls looked at each other, but still didn't say a word. After a long time, Guanqing Han coughed dryly and took the lead to speak. "But I don't know how that woman looks like. What about her temperament?" As she said that, she glanced at Jun Moxie and said, "Mo Xie has always been very principled in this kind of thing. He definitely won't be tempted by lust. I think there must be another reason behind it. Why don't we let him say it himself? After we hear the whole story, we can decide what to do." "That's right," the girls said in unison. Mei Shuiyan's lips curled into a relaxed smile. The reason why she called all the sisters together was because she wanted to help June Moxie solve this problem. Everyone would know about this sooner or later, so it was better to take the opportunity to reveal it now. Moreover, as long as everyone was together, as long as one expressed that she didn't care, then she believed that no one would object. No one wanted to become a jealous woman or a jealous woman in June Moxie's heart. Moreover, they weren't married yet. Mei Shuiyan's actions seemed harsh, but it could solve the root of June Moxie's worries this time. June Moxie was quick-witted and naturally understood the reason behind it. That was why Da Xiao looked at Mei Shuiyan gratefully, but Mei Shuiyan still rolled her eyes at him when no one was paying attention. At the same time, June Da Xiao heard a voice as soft as a mosquito in his ears. Just this once. Don't do again. Otherwise, I won't let you enter the bridal chamber for the rest of your life. June Mo Xie shivered uncontrollably. This punishment is too heavy. But isn't the coverage of this punishment too broad? Everyone here is being punished as well. The cause of the matter is like this. June Moxie rolled his eyes and began to narrate. But in front of so many of his women, narrating his love story with another woman, this feeling was not right. When they heard that June Moxie entered the Misty mansion and was made difficult by the Gu family and the Zhan family, all the women were filled with righteous indignation. They wished that they could be there at that time to teach those two gigolos a lesson. Naturally, their impression of Xiao Miao, who stood up for them at that time, also improved. Until the end of the competition with the Zhan family, all the doubts in the women's hearts were suddenly cleared. All of them turned to look at June Mo Xie and snorted coldly. You're so flashy, and you've even performed this and that. You're practically an omnipotent genius. Such a talented and knowledgeable young man. That Xiao Miao, isn't blind. It would be strange if she didn't take a liking to you. Isn't this just showing off on purpose? What's the point of attracting butterflies and bees? When they heard that June Moxie rejected her decisively, Xiao Miao was so heartbroken that she vomited blood on the spot and fainted on the ground. Her life was in danger, and she might never wake up again. All the women let out an ah sound. Their eyes filled with sympathy. While the women sympathized with her, they also thought of themselves. If they liked June Moxie so much and were rejected by him, at the same time, their families might even use them as a tool to form a marriage alliance. Putting themselves in their shoes, they couldn't help but shiver. Then, there would really be no hope left in life. All the women's mentality changed at the same time. All of them wanted to urge June Moxie to hurry and save Xiao Miao, completely forgetting that they were just cursing a certain wildflower in their hearts. One had to say, women were all emotional creatures. When they heard June Moxie say that he finally rushed over and saved Xiao Miao, Guanqing Han and the rest heaved a sigh of relief. Then June Moxie said that he actually met one of the 4 great disciples of the Nine Nether, first young master from 10,000 years ago. Then, when he came out of the Misty Mansion Manor Lord's birthday celebration, Xiao Miao ate a pill and accidentally triggered a heavenly tribulation. All of these were sensational scenes that made people's hearts waver. Towards the end of the story, all the women actually had this feeling. It was actually a real heavenly tribulation that triggered the earthly fire. Under such circumstances, if nothing happened, it would really be abnormal. When they heard that Xiao Miao finally passed the heavenly tribulation successfully and then entered the spiritual herbal gardens the next day, all the way until she came out, all the women opened their eyes wide and listened attentively, as if they were listening to a story. Dugu Xiaoi Kair and Han Yiming all held their cheeks with their hands and blinked their big eyes. When June Moxie finished his story, the 3 of them actually asked in unison, what happened after that? June Moxie directly staggered. Mei Shuiyan, Guanqing Han, and the rest all held their foreheads and let out a long sigh. These 3 girls, did they really think that they were listening to a story? This was like finding another love rival for them, even though it was a very pitiful and adorable person. But right now, the women's thoughts were clearly not on this, nor on Xiao Miao. Everyone was very calm. What's done is done. What's done is done. What else can they do? This was the only way. Fortunately, from June Moxie's story, he felt that this little sister Xiao Miao had a gentle temperament and was worth befriending. The affair could basically be considered to have come to an end. June Moxie let out a long sigh, feeling extremely depressed in his heart. You guys are fine now, but Meow Xiao Meow still doesn't know that I'm June Moxie. This is another mess, but it seemed that everyone was concerned about another question, a rather important one. Yeah. Does this mean that the exquisite lotus and the seven-colored fruit are both in your hands now? As they spoke, their eyes shone brightly. Those were the legendary miraculous things that could increase one's profound strength by 500 years and maintain one's appearance for 500 years. Thinking about being able to maintain one's youth forever, even a cold woman like Guan Qing Han couldn't help but feel a little impatient. As long as it was a woman, there was no one who didn't care about beauty. Does this mean that everyone has no objections towards that Meow Xiao Meow? Mei Shui struck the iron while it was hot. The women ignored her. Who care about Meow Xiao Meow now? Moreover, even if they objected, what use would it be? Anyway, they had already split it into so many portions, it didn't seem like a big deal to get another portion now. The most important thing right now was the exquisite lotus and the seven-colored fruit. They are indeed in my hands. June Moxie rubbed his nose and said, but it's not an increase of profound strength by 500 years and maintaining one's appearance for 500 years. This number is a little off. Is there a discrepancy? This number was passed down from generation to generation. It might not be accurate. Mei Shuyan was stunned and said slowly, then what's the discrepancy? Is it 300 years? Or more than 200 years? Even 100 years is fine. Dugu Xiaoi said excitedly. After 100 years, we can eat it again. We have the treat anyway. It's not 200 years, nor is it 300 years. June Moxie stretched out a finger. It's this number. Only 10 years? The women were greatly disappointed. They had worked so hard for only 10 years. This was a blow to their confidence. But even if it was 10 years, it was still a lot. It was still better than nothing. As the women were comforting themselves, they heard June Moxie say, why do you only know how to estimate it? This number is not 10 years, not 100 years, but 1,000 years. Chapter 1060. Wow! A wave of exclamations rang out, and Dugu Xiaoi and Han Yinmeng even jumped up from their seats. 1,000 years! Such a shocking piece of news shook the minds of all the women, and they almost fainted. Eternal youth, unchanging beauty for 1,000 years. Was this a dream? Even if it was a dream, they had to stay in it for a while longer and not wake up too soon. Since ancient times, beauties were like famous generals, and they were not allowed to see their hair turn white. The wind and frost of time had always been the thing that beauties were most afraid of, most hated, and most helpless against. How could they preserve their youth and beauty? Even if it was only for a short period of time, it was still something that women pursued tirelessly. The so-called cosmetics and skincare products were aimed at this kind of mentality of women, and that was why they could sell like hotcakes for a long time. Even if it was just for a short period of time, there would still be people who would go crazy over it. Not to mention, it was something that would allow them to preserve their beauty for 1,000 years. This was simply a miraculous elixir that all women would go crazy over. Even Mei Shui Yan's eyes, which had always been indifferent, were now filled with a blazing light. At the same time, all 7 women stood up and slowly approached June Moxie. All of them were rubbing their palms together, and all of them were itching for a fight. Suddenly, they shouted in unison, "Hurry up and hand over the things." June Moxie almost peed his pants in fear when he heard that shout. June Daxiao did not expect that these women would be so powerful. He almost fainted from the shock. The temptation of beauty and youth was too terrifying. Left with no choice, young Master June could only take out the remaining 5 sets of 7-colored holy fruits. Then, he activated the power of wood and hastened the ripening of the 7-colored holy fruits once more. Only then did he manage to gather 7 sets. Reaching his hand into the exquisite lotus pond, he broke off a larger piece of exquisite lotus root. Ladies, Queen, this little one only has this much, and I've already given it all to you. I did not dare to hide anything. Please spare my life." June Moxie's eyes were filled with tears, and he looked as if he had been robbed 100 times, 7 people, 7 sets of holy fruits. Naturally, the big piece of exquisite lotus had to be cut into 7 pieces as well, just enough for each person. The piece of exquisite lotus that June Dashao had contributed was truly huge. Even though it was only a 1/7 of its original size, it was still 3 times bigger than the complete exquisite lotus root from the Heaven Saint Palace. Not to mention the size, even its practical effects far surpassed the exquisite lotus root from the Heaven Saint Palace. How could anything produced in the Hongjun Pagoda be inferior? Looking at the irresistible temptation placed in front of them, the girls couldn't help but blush, and their eyes shot out ecstasy. Guan Qinghan first picked up a set and looked at it from top to bottom. She even brought it close to her nose and sniffed it deeply. Suddenly, she thought of something and looked at June Moxie seriously. She asked, "Well, why are there only these?" "Emosia, aren't you going to eat?" "Yes, for the time being, there are only 7. There are 7 of you, 1 for each of you." June Moxie was stunned. "Does it matter whether I eat or not? I'm not a woman. I'm not afraid of getting old." Then an extremely complicated expression appeared on Guan Qinghan's face, and her jade-like hands started to tremble. After a long time, she gritted her teeth and tried her best to control herself. She placed the 7-colored fruit and exquisite lotus back on the table. When the 2 items left her hands, it was obvious that Guan Qinghan's face was filled with an intense struggle and reluctance. But she still placed the 2 rare treasures down and took 2 steps back. She closed her eyes tightly, and with a pale face, she said softly, "If you don't eat, I won't eat either." "Why?" June Moxie was truly shocked. When Guan Qinghan had placed the 7-colored fruit and exquisite lotus down, it was as if she had gone through an intense battle in her heart. The intensity of the battle could be seen by anyone with eyes. But June Moxie had never imagined that Guan Qinghan would actually make such a decision. "Why?" Guan Qinghan's expression slowly calmed down, but her forehead was already dripping with sweat. She said tiredly, "Who do we maintain our beauty for? A gentleman will die for his bosom friend, and a woman will dress up for the one who loves her. There has always been only one reason why a woman would want to maintain her beauty, and that is for her lover." Guan Qinghan looked at June Moxie affectionately and said slowly, "If you don't eat, then you will inevitably grow old. Even if you aren't afraid of getting old, you will still grow old. At that time, even if we are still devastatingly beautiful, what's the point of living alone? Since you don't want to eat, I choose not to eat either. Let us grow old together, and I believe that is also a happy thing. Could it be that we can only talk about growing old together?" Qinghan, June Mo. Xie suddenly felt an indescribable shock in his heart, as if his heart was being overturned by a tsunami. He really didn't expect that Guan Qinghan, who had always been cold and aloof, would actually be able to say such words. This usually cold and aloof woman's heart was actually so extreme. For the sake of June Moxie, she was actually willing to give up the opportunity to maintain her youth. She was willing to let her devastatingly beautiful face grow old with him and turn into decay. Sister Qinghan is right. I also won't eat. This time, it was Han Yinming who spoke. Then Dugu Xiaoi, Ku'er, and the others all placed this sacred medicine that could make any woman go crazy on the table. Mei Shuiyan's face revealed an extremely gratified expression. June Moxie suddenly felt a little sour at his nose. He lightly coughed twice and smiled. "Well, you guys have actually misunderstood. I said that I won't eat because there are only 7 sets of these things for now. As long as we have enough time, we will be able to harvest more of these things. You guys are just the lucky ones to enjoy the first harvest. Let's not talk about other things. We now have a living rainbow tree. Although it doesn't bear many fruits each time, it is enough for everyone to eat. Not only us, but even grandfather, mother, 3rd uncle, and 3rd aunt will also have some. It is only a matter of time. But there is one thing. Third aunt is currently pregnant, so she can't eat this thing yet, in case the impact is too great and causes an accident. Don't tell her yet. Wait until the child is born. Well, at that time, the time for the second harvest should be almost here, and we can even send it over as a congratulatory gift. You bad person, why didn't you say so earlier? You made my heart ache so much just now. Who asked you, a big bad person, to be a little more precious than this elixir? Dugu Xiaoi pouted and complained. Then she became happy again and shouted, Come, 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 everyone eat. Sister Qinghan, hurry up and eat too. Now you don't have to worry about not having someone to admire your beauty anymore. Looks like June Sunshao will definitely admire you till old age, but there is definitely no such thing as a white head of hair in this world. Ha! Hearing the little girl's teasing, Guan Qinghan blushed to her ears and lowered her head deeply. But her lowered eyes were filled with happiness. Her pair of jade-like hands once again took a rainbow fruit and an exquisite lotus and clenched them tightly. All right, all of you eat it now. June Moxie took a deep breath and suppressed his still excited emotions and said, I will stand guard for all of you. After the effect is fully activated, the sudden increase in power will definitely break through the original Xian-Qi in your body, which means that it will definitely attract a personal lightning tribulation. And at that time, many of us will go through the tribulation together. All the girls nodded their heads. The already impatient Dugu Xiaoi had already stuffed the fruit into her mouth. About half a day later, in the skies above the Tianfa forest, lightning and thunder suddenly appeared, and the wind and clouds surged. The unique eye in the sky told everyone someone had broken through again. And it wasn't just one person. This kind of phenomenon was practically the strongest form of intimidation. Who had ever seen the majestic might of several people going through the tribulation together? Then, this newly established evil monarch manner. Just how strong was it? The ferocious lightning of the heavenly tribulation continued all the way until the afternoon, when the sky was about to turn dark before it gradually dissipated. But when the people from Tianfa rushed to the scene of the tribulation, they were shocked to find that it was actually a rare scene of peace. It was fine if it was just peace, but there were actually no signs of the lightning tribulation being struck by the heavenly tribulation at all. This matter caused everyone to click their tongues in amazement again. This phenomenon was very difficult to explain. It seemed like the only explanation was that the person undergoing the tribulation not only faced the lightning tribulation head-on, he did not dodge at all during the entire process and completely withstood it head-on. And he even completely dissipated the power of the lightning tribulation, so that not a single drop of the power of the lightning tribulation was left on the ground. This only logical explanation had just appeared, but before it could be said out loud, it was directly rejected by everyone themselves. This seemingly logical explanation was simply too ridiculous. This was definitely impossible. From the ancient times till now, not a single person had done it. Even the creator of Xian skills, the nine-nether first young master, could not do it. But other than this ridiculous explanation, what other way was there to explain this matter before their eyes? 7th of June, somewhere 1,000 li east of the Tianfa forest. Looking at the endless dark clouds and continuous lightning that suddenly appeared in the southwest, Miao Dao and Miao Jian's faces were extremely solemn. Dressed in plain clothes, Miao Xiao Miao stood behind the two of them, looking curiously at the strange phenomenon in the southwest with a calm expression. Although Miao Xiao Miao had already reached the realm of a venerable, her understanding of Xian skills was still rather shallow. Although the heavenly tribulation that she'd encountered previously seemed earth-shattering and full of danger, there was actually not the slightest bit of risk. All the risks were borne by June Moxie, and it could be said to be as easy as stepping on a rock. So in her understanding, this kind of heavenly tribulation could not even be compared to the one she'd experienced that day. So she naturally did not think much of it. There was nothing to be afraid of, but with Miao Dao and Jin's rich experience, how could they not see how dangerous this sudden lightning tribulation was? Chapter 1061. Meow Dao nodded heavily and sighed deeply. That's right. And from the looks of it, it's most likely not just one or two people undergoing the tribulation. The lightning is so dense, but the direction of the lightning tribulation is somewhat different. When it strikes out from the clouds, it's also striking in a few different directions, and the intensity is also very different. It can be concluded that there are at least 3 people or more. He paused for a moment and laughed coldly. Undergoing the tribulation at that place, don't those people know that the more people undergoing the tribulation at the same time, the stronger the lightning tribulation will be? If not for the fact that there are still no people who fail to undergo the tribulation, I would also say that those people undergoing the tribulation are all seeking death. Not to mention anything else. Just the power of some of the lightning tribulations has clearly reached the level of a saint venerable. But even under such a strong power, no one has failed. Looks like this group of people who are joining hands to undergo the tribulation is precisely because they have absolute confidence. That's why they would use such an extremely unwise method. Jian, looks like the strength of Tian Fa Forest has far exceeded our expectations. If everyone can pass through the tribulation this time, then our original plan will probably have to change slightly. Miao Jian's face was also very ugly. Dao, if the 3 holy lands choose to ignore the big picture this time, what should we do? Miao Dao's face also turned ugly. After a long silence, he said, I believe that the 3 holy lands will not really ignore the big picture, but it's also impossible for them to not set up obstacles. The relationship between them and Jun Moxie has long been irreconcilable, if not for the fact that the war for seizing the heavens is right around the corner. And they also feel that their battle strength is insufficient to deal with this battle. They would have long started a war with Jun Moxie's forces. So, even if they don't completely fall out with each other and destroy the opening of the Evil Monarch Manor, they will still exert pressure in many aspects, making sure that the Evil Monarch Manor does not get what he wants. The opening of the Evil Monarch Manor represents a good omen. If this omen is not good, the influence of the Evil Monarch Manor will not be as great as expected. At least, it won't be like the sun in the sky right now, looking down on everyone. So, once the 2 sides start fighting, the result will be very serious. And at that time, our position will be very awkward, especially after witnessing the strength of Jun Moxie's side today. Once we make a choice, the consequences will be far-reaching. An old man floated over like a gust of wind and stood beside the 2 of them. There's no need to worry too much about what the 3 holy lands will do. After all, this time, we will not choose to stand on the side of the 3 holy lands. He paused for a moment and smiled faintly. Of course, we will not stand on the side of the evil monarch. Meow Xiao Meow said in surprise. I'm afraid it will be a little difficult to maintain a neutral stance. And this kind of method might not be beneficial, right? If these 2 families really want to fight for supremacy in the continent, then our Misty Mansion will definitely have to choose a side to support. If we just watch from the sidelines, I'm afraid we won't be able to gain the favor of both sides. No matter which side emerges victorious in the end, it will not be beneficial to the future development of our Misty Mansion. There was a reason for Meow Xiao Meow's surprise. Her words were also quite reasonable. As the granddaughter of the Manor Lord, she naturally knew more about the relationship between the Misty Mansion and the Xian continent. She also knew that although the Misty Mansion was self-sufficient in name, there was actually a considerable amount of resources that had to be brought in from the continent to be truly sufficient. And if they wanted to obtain these resources, they had to have a tacit understanding with the true ruler of the continent. In the past, the 3 holy lands and the Misty Mansion had cooperated a few times, and the foundation was also built on mutual exchanges. For example, the 7 colored holy fruits that Xiao Ying had consumed was one of the most important exchanges. In reality, the 3 holy lands had completely blocked the Misty Mansion from obtaining the resources that they lacked. Even though the Misty Mansion was powerful, they could not be so detached from the world and be content in a corner. After all, although the people from the Holy Lands seemed to be secluded from the world, and did not appear in the pugilistic world. But in this world, there were countless powers that belonged to the three Holy Lands. They could be found in every corner of the Xian continent, and they were all rather influential families. Once these powers joined forces, the influence they could create was extremely terrifying, enough to affect the entire continent. And their wills were completely controlled by the upper echelons of the Holy Lands, so the entire continent's power was still in the hands of the three Holy Lands. It was just that they were used to being in high positions and did not need to mobilize these powers. But the moment they mobilized these powers, it could easily cause a huge change in the entire continent. Xiao Miao, lass, you're thinking too much. What you've said is the basic principle of the Misty Mansion. How could this old man not understand? In the end, it's impossible for us to not choose either side. The old man looked at Xiao Miao, with admiration and smiled. But we really cannot make a choice now, because we will only cooperate with the side that wins in the end. There was one more thing that the old man did not say, although there was no conclusion yet. But even if that Jun Moxie was Mo Junyi, and there was a marriage relationship between him and the Misty Mansion, if he lost this battle, the Misty Mansion would still not choose him. This matter concerned the future of the Misty Mansion for tens of thousands of years, so it was impossible for personal feelings to affect the overall decision. Xiao Miao nodded, not fully understanding. Although she was intelligent enough to detect the contradiction in this sixth grandfather's words, she did not pursue the matter further. Because along the way, she had already vaguely felt that when the elders were discussing matters, they would often avoid her, intentionally or unintentionally, although she did not understand the reason. Xiao Miao would not seek trouble for herself. Although she was the only granddaughter of the manor head, she was still young. It was not a big deal for the elders to not inform her of their decisions. Besides, her main goal was to find Junyi. What did that evil monarch or whatever have to do with her? It was better if they did not inform her. She would be happy to be free. The younger brother of the Zhan family, Zhan Wuyun, Zhan Wufeng, led 12 saint experts and stood silently at the back. The two people beside him were two fourth-level Holy Emperor experts of the Zhan family, acting as bodyguards for this trip. These two people were extremely proficient in the art of teamwork. Although their combined strength might not be comparable to the combined strength of Chao Guofeng and the other 7 holy emperors before they broke through, they would not be much weaker. The strength that the Zhan family had sent out this time was definitely enough to sweep through the entire world. If not for the fact that this was the opening ceremony of the evil monarch manor, which required a strong military force to not let down the prestige of the Misty Mansion, and the fact that the Zhan family had other motives. Zhan Wuyin really would not have sent out so many experts. However, these people had personally witnessed the dense lightning that seemed to stretch for hundreds of kilometers in the southwest, and all of them were terrified to the point that their faces turned pale. Panic appeared in their eyes, and although they weren't personally experiencing it, they were still indescribably terrified. Such a ferocious, heavenly tribulation. Even when any one of them was breaking through, they would not be able to compare to this. And this rare and ferocious heavenly tribulation actually lasted for an entire afternoon. And Miao Dao and the rest also stood on this hill 1,000 li away for an entire afternoon. Only when the sky turned dark and the jade rabbit rose from the east did they finally return to their tents. There were a total of 20 people from the Misty Mansion. The Miao family, Miao Dao, Miao Jian, Miao Xiao Miao, and that sixth brother, Miao Zhan. The Zhan family, 16 people, including Zhan Wufeng, 2 of the Holy Emperor's bodyguards, and 12 saints. The only young person who came with them was Zhan Yuting, who was originally ranked 3rd in the younger generation of the Zhan family, but had now jumped to 1st place. In the heart of the Zhan family's patriarch, Zhan Wuyun, this opening ceremony of the evil monarch manor was nothing more than an ordinary ceremony. It was a good opportunity for the younger generation to broaden their horizons and increase their knowledge. And now that Zhan Yushu and Zhan Qingfeng had died, he could only bring Zhan Yuting, who had never stood out before, out to see the world. After all, He was the future hope of the Zhan family. There were no great generals in Shu, so Liao Hua was the vanguard. They arrived at this place in the morning. Although this place did not have any specific history, but every time the Misty Mansion and the three Holy Lands needed to act together, the people from the four powers would gather here. This had already become a tradition for thousands of years. So although the Misty Mansion had arrived early, they were still waiting here for the people from the other three places to come. Three grandpas. Why are we not moving forward anymore? Isn't there still some distance to the destination? Miao Xiao Miao was very puzzled. They had rushed all the way here, so why did they suddenly stop? It seemed like there was still more than 1,000 miles to the location of the evil monarch manor. Although with the speed of the people from Misty Mansion, this distance would only take about 3 days, but it was still quite a distance. And along the way, whenever Miao Xiao Miao passed by a place with people, she would ask about Mo Junye's movements. But Mo Junye was a fictitious person. It was destined that no one would know of him. Even if they met someone with the same name, the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Miao Xiao Miao had originally been filled with boundless hope along the way, but now she was becoming more and more melancholic. Xiao Miao lass. This is your first time coming to the Xian continent, so you naturally do not know. We have to wait here for the three Holy Lands to come and meet them together. Miao Dao looked at Miao Xiao Miao and sighed lightly. Although the manor lord had said that guess, and it was also somewhat biased, but this time, if the power represented by the evil monarch of Tian Fa was too weak, they still had to consider the bigger picture of the Misty Mansion. At that time, they might have to sacrifice Miao Xiao Miao's love. After all, the happiness of a girl was so insignificant compared to the entire Misty Mansion. Chapter 1062. Three Holy Lands? Miao Xiao Miao nodded and suddenly giggled. The three Holy Lands that were forced to the point of not being able to retaliate by that evil monarch. I've always heard that the three Holy Lands are on par with our Misty Mansion, but from the looks of it now. Don't speak like that. Miao Zhan stopped Miao Xiao Miao solemnly. His tone was unusually stern as he said, "The three Holy Lands have never been simple. The strongest force behind the three Holy Lands, the Heaven Saint Palace, has never done anything for this matter. In other words, what that Jun Moxie is dealing with is only the external forces of the three Holy Lands. Without considering the strength of the Heaven Saint Palace, the three Holy Lands are indeed not fit to be mentioned in the same breath as our Misty Mansion. But if the Heaven Saint Palace makes a move, even our Misty Mansion will have to go all out to be able to deal with them. Not to mention that puny, evil monarch. Sixth Grandpa means that the prospects of this evil monarch establishing his own faction is not very optimistic. That rising sun in the sky is merely a bunker on the beach, or perhaps it's just a dream." Miao Xiao Miao blinked her eyes and asked with a smile, "That's roughly what I mean, so you're trying to get information out of this old man." Miao Zhan smiled helplessly. "AI, there's no outsider here, so I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. This old man really doesn't think very highly of this newly risen evil monarch. If the evil monarch only wants to establish his own faction and slowly develop it for fun, as long as he doesn't reveal too much ambition or strength, then he can still maintain it for a few years. But if the Heaven Saint Palace revealed any intention of contending with the three Holy Lands, or if they harmed the interests of the three Holy Lands, the moment the three Holy Lands were unable to deal with it on their own, the Heaven Saint Palace would definitely not stand idly by. At that time, the one who will be out of luck will only be that evil monarch manor. In the Heaven Saint Palace, there are at least 50 Saint Venerable experts, and many of them have even broken through to the Saint Venerable level, or even to a higher level." Miao Dao sighed as he spoke. "Since the three Holy Lands have such a strong foundation, and we're basically confirmed allies, then, Grandpa Miao, why are you still sighing?" Miao Xiao Miao sensitively felt that when Miao Dao sighed, he glanced at her. "Why? It's all because of you, lass." Miao Dao thought helplessly, but he said, "When two tigers fight, one is bound to get hurt. And now, it just so happened that the war for seizing the heavens was at a delicate juncture. Once both sides officially started fighting, the entire world would be thrown into chaos. One had to know that if there were any repercussions from a game between the upper echelons, it would affect the campaigns of the entire secular world. At that time, the common people will be trapped in the chaos of war for thousands of years. And didn't Sixth Grandpa just say that the Heaven Saint Palace's strength is extremely tyrannical? Could it be that this evil monarch really had such strength? Could it be that he actually has the power to destroy the three holy lands? Meow Xiao Meow keenly captured this point from Meow Dao's words. She suddenly felt a little shocked, because Meow Dao had just said, the moment the evil monarch shows that he wants to fight against the three holy lands, or harm the interests of the three holy lands, the moment the three holy lands are unable to deal with him alone, the Heaven Saint Palace will interfere. This meant that the three holy lands no longer had the confidence to defeat the evil monarch alone. Only the hidden experts of the Heaven Saint Palace would be able to suppress the evil monarch. That's right. Miao Jian nodded his head heavily. If the evil monarch really thinks this way, he can really do it. But even if he does it, he will not be able to avoid the fate of being destroyed by the Heaven Saint Palace. As long as these two sides start fighting, it will be a situation where both sides lose. There is no need to doubt this. Meow Xiao Meow widened her eyes in shock. But didn't the rumors say that the evil monarch, Tian Xiang Jun Moxie, isn't he only in his 20s? He's so young. Could it be that he's actually so powerful? How is this possible? To be more accurate, that evil monarch should only be 18 and a half years old. He's not even 19 yet. The one who said this was the second in command of the Zhan family, Zhan Wufeng. Seeing the commotion here, he also brought his grandson, Zhan Yuting, over and finished the sentence that Meow Xiao Meow had just said. 18 and a half years old. Meow Xiao Meow sucked in a breath of cold air. 18 and a half years old. This age, he's half a year younger than Junyi and naturally younger than me. But looking at him, and then looking at myself, Meow Xiao Meow couldn't help but feel a little discouraged. But then, she raised her eyebrows and thought to herself, but no matter how unparalleled your Xian cultivation is, you will never be like my Jun, Yi who knows everything and is an outstanding expert in every aspect. Furthermore, Junyi also has the legendary free and natural physique. If he wants to surpass this evil monarch in terms of Xian cultivation, it's only a matter of time. As long as he has enough time, my Junyi will definitely suppress that whatever evil monarch until he can't even lift his head, Zhan Wufeng said lightly. This evil monarch can be said to be the number one genius in this world. How long has it been since the Xian continent was founded? But a genius like this has never appeared before. Even the Nine Nether first young master of that year. Although his achievements were unprecedented, it doesn't mean that there won't be someone who can surpass him in the future. Because when he was at his age, he would definitely have the same level of strength as the evil monarch today. If this evil monarch can get through this crisis, he might just become another Nine Nether first young master. Or even stronger. As he said this, he looked at Meow Xiao Meow and smiled faintly. Miss Xiao Meow's husband, that free and natural physique Mo Junyi, young master Mo, can also be considered as a rare genius in this world. But don't be afraid of not knowing what's good for you. Just be afraid of comparing the goods. Although Mo Junyi is also considered rare, but compared to Jun Moxie, the difference is like the difference between heaven and earth. One is like a phoenix soaring through the 9 heavens, while the other is like a chicken whose wings haven't fully grown yet. The Zhan family's plan to deal with the free and natural physique Mo Jun Yi could be said to have failed completely. It was almost a complete wipeout. Not only did they lose 2 outstanding successors that the family had placed their hopes on, they even lost a saint venerable expert. Although these people had died for no apparent reason, it was all because of Mo Junyi. The hatred between both sides could not be said to be shallow. Right now, there was a rare opportunity to strike back, so how could they not make use of it? Mo Junyi was a very talented genius, but right now, there was a great genius that was 1,000,000 times stronger than Mo Junyi. In front of a heaven-defying expert like Jun Moxie, Mo Junyi might be very strong in the future, but right now, he was nothing. What did a mere golden Xian cultivation count for? He was just an ant. Although Zhan Wufeng knew that striking down Mo Junyi in front of Miao, Xiao Miao, was not something that suited his status, he still couldn't help but say it out loud. Although his tone was gentle and his smile was still on his face, the provocation in his words could not be any more obvious. Who did you say is a phoenix? Who is a chicken? You're the bald chicken. Miao Xiao Miao's face was flushed red with anger, and her voice had also turned sharp. Her eyes shone with a cold light as she glared at this third-level Holy Emperor expert of the Zhan family. Her gaze was so sharp that even Zhan Wufeng, this Holy Emperor expert, did not dare to face her directly. Little sister Xiao Miao, just who is the phoenix and who is the chicken? Is there a need to say it out loud? Zhan Yuting waved his fan and said with a smile, as the saying goes, justice is in the hearts of the people. Right now, Jun Moxie's name has already shaken the entire world, looking down on everyone with disdain. And it's with his own hands and feet, practically barehanded, he's able to create this boundless empire. Right now, he's even able to stand on equal footing with the 3 holy lands of the Xian continent, and even has the upper hand. As for your Mo Junyi, even though he has the free and natural physique, he's still only at the Golden Xian realm. At most, he's a little smart, knows some unorthodox ways, and plays some dirty tricks. I'm afraid he's just like a rat on the street, and he might not even be able to protect himself. Could it be that compared to that, Jun Moxie, Mo Junyi is actually a phoenix? Miao Xiao Miao was so angry that her entire body was trembling. Suddenly, she thought of something and calmed herself down. Lingling smiled and said, Third young Master Zhan is right. That Jun Moxie has such strength and achievements at such a young age is indeed rare and commendable. Comparing him to a phoenix of the 9 heavens is also reasonable. As for my Junyi, his wings are indeed not fully grown yet. But if Junyi is a chicken, then what about the Zhan family that was suppressed by Junyi alone to the point where they couldn't even speak? An insect that was defeated by his sharp claws? Miao Xiao Miao saw the Zhan family uncle and nephew ridiculing Mo Junyi without restraint. How could she endure it? She retaliated with all sorts of sharp words. Zhan Yuting couldn't help but be taken aback when he heard that. He hadn't expected that the usually gentle Miao Xiao Miao would actually say such words, and in such a decisive manner at that. His face flushed red, and only after a long time did he say, That's because his luck is good. It just so happened that he was tested on his forte. Otherwise, Mo Junyi would have long been consigned to eternal damnation. Oh, I wonder why your Zhan family's luck is so bad. Luck is the will of the heavens. Even the heavens do not stand on your Zhan family's side. What extravagant talk about victory and defeat. What phoenix and chicken. A frog at the bottom of a well talking about a heavenly bird, truly ignorant. Miao Xiao Miao's first harsh sentence was spat out, and she no longer had any reservations. Her words were as sharp as knives, extremely sharp. Miao Xiao Miao had always been gentle, and had never been such a sharp person. But this Zhan family's merciless insults towards Mo Junyi had touched on Miao Xiao Miao's reverse scale. Not only were her words not polite, they were also equally merciless. Chapter 1063. Zhan Wuyin did not expect this little lass to have such a sharp tongue, and every word she said seemed to have a hidden meaning. From her words, it was as if she knew something. He couldn't help but feel a little more fearful, but his worries were groundless. The reason why Miao Xiao Miao said this was completely because she was forced by their words. It was not because she really knew any secrets of the Zhan family. But the moment Zhan Wuyin heard this, he felt that something was amiss, and couldn't help but feel suspicious. Stop arguing. We came here on behalf of the Misty Mansion. Why are we arguing among ourselves? Zhang Wuyun, you're already a few hundred years old, and you're arguing with a little ass. Do you have any shame? Miao Dao turned around and scolded impatiently. He looked coldly at Zhang Wuyun, but his protectiveness towards Miao Xiao Miao was clear in his words. Zhang Wuyun's face turned red, and he kept his mouth shut. Miao Zhan and Ling Ling snorted coldly. He had long found these people from the Zhan family intolerable. Although he had already made up his mind not to let these people return alive, and naturally wouldn't bother with a few people who were about to die, but he still felt that time was passing a little too slowly to let these trash act so arrogantly in front of him. Right now, Miao Zhan was thinking in his heart, should I let these people die in the hands of the evil monarch? Or should I just let them die in my hands? Since they're already destined not to return alive, rather than letting outsiders benefit, I might as well let them benefit myself, lest the reputation of the Misty Mansion be tarnished because of their deaths. Miao Jian heaved a sigh of relief and muttered to himself in confusion. Why haven't the people from the 3 holy lands arrived yet? Even if the 3 places are far from each other, it shouldn't be that they haven't arrived yet. Miao Dao smiled lightly. The way the 3 holy lands do things has always been explosive, always striking first to gain the initiative, catching the enemy off guard. They should already be nearby. At this point, Miao Dao's expression suddenly darkened. Then, Miao Jian and Miao Zhan's expressions also became solemn. The 3 of them looked towards the dense forest at the same time. There was a powerful aura coming from that direction, and it was coming towards him at an extremely fast speed. Miao Dao shook his head and said gloomily, "It's really uncanny, whoever I say arrives." Miao Jian shook his head and said in a low voice, "The people of the Holy Lands are evil. Speaking of tortoises and turtles appear." Miao Xiao Miao covered her mouth and giggled uncontrollably. Miao Jian's words were really insulting to the extreme. "Brother Miao, you've actually arrived so early." "Huh. Looks like your Misty Mansion is quite concerned about the matter of the evil monarch this time. We have troubled Brother Miao to wait for so long." "Is truly a sin." A clear voice rang out, as if it didn't carry the slightest bit of the mortal world. Following this voice, 6 to 7 white figures floated out from the dense forest. "Brother Gu, why, you've actually come personally this time? Looks like the Hermitage has also come prepared." Miao Zhan laughed and quickly walked forward. From the shadows of the road, a total of 7 white figures appeared. 6 men and 1 woman, all dressed in snow-white robes. The 6 men all had gray beards and tall crowns, and their gazes were sharp. The only woman had a picturesque appearance, her beauty indescribable, as if she was an immortal descending to the mortal world. The one in the middle, is he the current sect leader of the Hermitage, Missouri Wu Dao? Miao Zhan looked at the person in the middle of the 7 white figures with a strange gaze. This person's face was like jade, and his white robes and black hair made him look like he was out of this world, extremely carefree. And the most important thing was that his cultivation was the lowest in this group of 7. It seemed like he was only a 3rd-level venerable. In terms of cultivation, among the people present, he was only slightly stronger than Miao, Xiao Miao, and Zhan Yuting. But every movement he made had a natural and unrestrained aura, with a hint of arrogance and nobility. As for the other 6 people, among the 5 men, 3 of them were Holy Emperor, 2 were Saint Venerables, and the beautiful woman was also a Saint Venerable. Her strength seemed to be the strongest among the group. But when Mo Wu Dao walked among these people, even though the cultivation of these 6 people was far above his aura was still able to stand out. This was enough to show that this person was not ordinary. This was the demeanor that had been cultivated from commanding people for a long time. As for the others, they did not have this, and Mo Wu Dao's eyes were gentle as he looked at Miao Zhan. He smiled and bowed. "This must be the Misty Mansion's Miao Zhan. Senior Miao. This junior, Mo Wu Dao, greets senior." His words could be said to be extremely calm. But for some reason, when such calm words came out of his mouth, It gave off a very powerful and sincere feeling. Coupled with his expression and gaze, everyone felt that his greeting came from the bottom of his heart, without the slightest bit of hypocrisy. Miao Zhan stared at him for a while. Mo Wudao returned the smile. Although he did not speak again, his sincere smile and clear eyes made this person seem even more like a modest gentleman, someone worth befriending. Mo Wudao is indeed extraordinary. Miao Zhan sighed slightly. Just based on this demeanor alone, other than Miao Huanyu, it was rare to see anyone else in Misty Mansion who could be so calm. No wonder this person was able to manage Hermitage with the strength of a third-level venerable. Just his scheming and shrewdness alone were already rare. How can this Wu Dao be worthy of seniors' praise of being extraordinary? I have been busy all these years, and my cultivation has not improved at all. I am truly ashamed. In this Empress's trip, Senior Qiao Ying is the leader. This junior is merely here to make up the numbers. Mo Wu Dao pointed at the only woman in Hermitage's group. That elegant woman was Qiao Ying. Originally, with Qiao Ying's identity and status, there was no need for her to come on this trip. However, Qiao Ying was truly worried about those exquisite lotuses that June Moxie had moved. To Qiao Ying, those exquisite lotuses were like her children. How could she not be worried? She had already taken care of them for several thousand years. This kind of affection was naturally unparalleled. It must be said that Qiao Ying's strength was extremely high, and she was the #1 person in Hermitage's group. However, in terms of ability to deal with matters, it was probably the other way around. However, it was also a fact that her identity was extraordinary. Thus, even though Mo Wu Dao was the palace master of Hermitage, he did not treat her with the utmost respect. It was just that no one would take it seriously if he said that she was the leader of this trip. Is this Miss Qiao Ying? I've heard a lot about you, Miao Zhan said. Miao Zhan's words came from the bottom of his heart. There was almost no one in Misty Mansion who did not know of Qiao Ying's name. She was the only special existence outside of Misty Mansion who had eaten the 7-colored holy fruit. At the same time, she was also the person who had eaten the exquisite lotuses at the same time, and not just once. Her fortune could be said to be unparalleled in this world. Not only Miao Zhan, the Saber and Sword brothers, Miao, Xiao Miao, and the dozens of people from the Zhan family all had their eyes on Qiao Ying. These people had only heard of her name, but had never seen her in person. Today, their horizons were truly broadened. Although Qiao Ying's cultivation was high, her social skills were probably even worse than those ordinary people who did not have any Xian cultivation. Being stared at by so many people, she was at a loss as to what to do, but she did not know what to say. However, Mo Wu Dao sighed and said, "Today, I've seen the elegance of all the seniors here. The reputation of Misty Mansion is not just for show." This makes Wu Dao feel even more ashamed. As he said that, he shook his head. His face had a faint look of disappointment and hope, as well as a flash of shame. Although it was just a flash, everyone could see it clearly. This also made them believe that this person admitted his shortcomings frankly and did not exaggerate at all. He was indeed a trustworthy person. With just this one sentence, he had already saved Qiao Ying from the awkward situation, and he had even praised the people from Misty Mansion. He was really smooth and slick. The sacred ground controls the world and controls the secular world. If not for Palace Master Mo, who is in charge of Hermitage, how would those old fellows have the time to cultivate? Miao Zhan smiled and said, "Although Palace Master Mo's cultivation has been hindered, he is doing it for the benefit of the world. His contributions are for the current generation and the benefits for the future generations." This old man and the others can't help but feel deep respect for someone like Palace Master, even if his cultivation is slightly weaker. So what? It could be seen that Miao Zhan's impression of Mo Wu Dao was quite good. Facing such a person, it was indeed difficult for people to feel bad. Mo Wu Dao smiled in a carefree manner and said, "How could Wu Dao not understand this logic? It's just that everyone knows this logic, and Wu Dao is no exception. I can't help but feel a little disappointed in my heart." Wu Dao's childish behavior today has made Senior laugh at me. As they spoke, the two sides had already walked together harmoniously. They walked towards the tent that had been set up earlier. As for the three holy emperors who came with Hermitage, they quickly set up their own tent next to the tent of Misty Mansion. Although the three of them were experts of the Holy Emperor, they were really nothing compared to Miao Zhan and Xiaoying. Everyone exchanged greetings as they entered the tent and sat down. Although Mo Wudao was a junior, his identity was still the current sect master of Hermitage. At the same time, he was also the one with the most authority in this group, so he naturally sat at the head of the table. Only when Mo Wudao was seated did Xiao Ying, who was the head in name, take the second seat. Haha, I wonder what seniors of the Misty Illusory Manor think of the evil monarch's opening ceremony this time. Mo Wudao smiled lightly, a humble expression on his face as he asked calmly. The moment he said this, Miao Dao, Miao Jian, Miao Zhan, and Zhan Wufeng all felt at the same time. With just a few words of greetings, Mo Wudao had already used his unique charm and words to successfully control the topic of conversation. This kid was indeed impressive. His question was, what is your opinion of the evil monarch's opening ceremony? This question didn't seem like anything much at first glance. It was just a very ordinary question, but it had caused everyone's thoughts to be limited to this circle. As long as you want to speak, you must first answer this question of his. And this question might seem like a very ordinary question, but there was a hidden sharpness in it. And the target was precisely the evil monarch. Miao Dao and the others all knew that with this sentence of Mo Wudao's, if they couldn't come up with a strong topic to change the current situation, the entire conversation would be dominated by Mo Wudao, and it would tilt towards the evil monarch's side. And this sort of situation, to the people of Misty Mansion who had already made up their minds to watch from the sidelines, was the most unpleasant situation. Chapter 1064. But I wonder what Palace Lord Mo thinks. Miao Zhan chuckled. Our Misty Mansion belongs to the outside world, and we can only look at the Xian continent from afar. Our understanding of the evil monarch is really not much. Palace Lord Mo, you can take out your own thoughts and Hermitage's strategy for us to consult. How about that? Mo Wudao smiled bitterly. Senior Miao is really amazing. With just a sentence, you push the problem back to the younger generation. Haha, but regarding this matter, I have nothing to say. This is not Wu Dao's excuse, but because Wu Dao's younger brother, Xiao Yao, died tragically in the hands of the evil monarch Junmoxi. This hatred is as deep as the mountains and as deep as the seas. So, no matter what Wu Dao says, it will inevitably be biased and unfair. He furrowed his brows as if he was in a difficult position. If seniors have any advice, that would be for the best. If seniors are still unable to come to a decision, then wait for brother Shiruo Chun of the Golden City and brother Huyan Aobo of the Blood Sea to arrive, and everyone can come up with a plan. Miao Zhan smiled non-committally and said, Palace Lord Mo has spoken the thoughts in his heart, which is enough to show his sincerity. However, it must have been tough for everyone to come all the way here, so you should rest first. This matter is not urgent. There are still 7 to 8 days until the 15th. We have enough time to brainstorm and come up with a perfect plan. Mo Wudao's sharp eyes flashed, and he smiled sincerely. If that's the case, thank you for your concern, Senior. The Miao family returned to their tents with furrowed brows. Zhan Weian walked in and sat down. How is Mo Wudao? Miao Zhan looked at everyone and asked with a frown. Mo Wudao, this person must be analyzed carefully. If we can analyze that Mo Wudao thoroughly, I believe it will be equivalent to analyzing half of Junmoxi. Mo Wudao held the leading position in the 3 Holy Lands. If they were to cooperate with the 3 Holy Lands in the future, they would have a higher chance of success. And from him, we can deduce Junmoxi's characteristics, strengths, and weaknesses. That is our current goal. If the 3 Holy Lands are really defeated, cooperating with the evil monarch is also indispensable. This is also what the mansion master solemnly instructed us to do before we came here. We must do it, and we must do it well. Miao Zhan's words were very serious and cautious, especially when he said, "The three holy lands have really fallen." It was obvious that he hesitated for a moment, but he still said it. However, the word decline seemed to be exceptionally difficult to say. It seemed that in the eyes of this peak expert from the Misty Mansion, although the defeat of the three holy lands at the hands of the evil monarch seemed absurd, it was not impossible. Once the sentence was said, everyone fell into deep thought. Everyone understood very well what Miao Zhan's words meant. Just now, they had interacted with Mo Wudao for a while, and they did not even say a few substantive words before they parted ways. Until now, the few words that Miao Zhan and Mo Wudao said to each other could still be easily repeated by everyone. Just a few polite words. From the beginning to the end, it was just polite words. But Miao Zhan wanted to dig out valuable information from these few polite words. From this, he wanted to analyze Mo Wudao thoroughly. Such a request could not be said to be low. Even Xiao Miao, was startled. In her view, from the harmonious exchange between the two parties, she thought that this sixth grandfather had a good impression of the palace master of Hermitage, and even felt like old friends at first sight. Who knew that he would dissect the palace master's mind the moment he turned around? The world of adults was really incomprehensible. Mo Wudao, this person. Mo Wudao, this person. Miao Dao furrowed his brows, thinking hard. He and Miao Jian were both assassins and butchers, so they weren't very good at this kind of scheming. After muttering for a long time, he finally said, "I don't know why, but I just don't like this person." He held it in for a long time, and only managed to squeeze out this sentence. Miao Zhan was speechless. What nonsense is this? Who cares if you like him or not? They only want to ask you why. The most important thing is that you don't even know. Miao Jian nodded his head, expressing his heartfelt agreement with his elder brother's words. Xiao Miao burst out into laughter. Wu Feng should say it first. Miao Zhan sighed. This was also the main reason why he called Zhan Wu Feng over, and also the only use of Zhan Wu Feng in this operation. Only someone like him who was used to playing with schemes was a first-rate expert in analyzing this. Letting him do the analysis was like making the best use of a person's talent. Mo Wudao. Zhan Wu Feng sucked in a deep breath and tried his best to recall everything that had happened earlier. He said slowly, "This person has the demeanor of a leader and is also very amiable. When people are around him, they would unconsciously feel a sense of harmony, as though they were bathing in the spring breeze." And there's another point. Be it his speech or his actions, it shows that this person is very cultured and has a great demeanor. When he speaks, he always looks straight into the other party's eyes, and his gaze is very sincere, showing great sincerity. Especially when it comes to the way you speak, you should have gone through strict training. You should even know which word to say with more emphasis, which sentence to say with deliberate hesitation, which sentence to say at a specific time, and which tone to use when to say a word. All of them are exactly the same. Zhan Wuyun said solemnly. This is something that only aristocratic families need to train in, but ordinary aristocratic families will not be able to reach this level. Without the painstaking accumulation of several generations, they might not even be able to produce such a person. But Mo Wudao has reached the point of perfection and can be said to be an expert amongst experts in this field. Truly impressive. A look of sincere admiration appeared in Miao Zhan's eyes. This Zhan Wu Feng's analysis started from the outermost layer, dissecting Mo Wudao. He did not directly say what this person was like, but through his words, he outlined Mo Wudao's attitude and temperament. No wonder this person is known as the number 2 person in the Zhan family. He is indeed extraordinary. There's another point that is also very important. Mo Wudao's control over the delicate situation is very outstanding. Every time he takes the lead in a conversation, it is actually him who uses the subtle changes in the conversation to forcefully seize control of the conversation. But it also makes others feel that it is unassailable. If not for the fact that he reflects on it, he might not have been able to realize this. Zhan Wufeng raised his head and closed his eyes, carefully recalling all the scenes from before. However, he was still speaking slowly. In fact, from the very first sentence, he had already revealed his intense hatred towards the evil monarch. But he did not say it himself. He wanted others to go along with his words. If it was any ordinary person, they would probably really fall for his tricks. Then, when he saw Sixth Uncle's rejection, as if he felt that the matter could not be done, he immediately retreated. But instead, he changed to a strategy of advancing by retreating. He took the initiative to say that his younger brother had died in the hands of Jun Moxie, and that he should avoid arousing suspicion. Otherwise, his words would be unfair, making us feel that he is frank and honest, and would not ignore the public for personal reasons. This way, he would fight for our good impression and approval. Zhan Wufeng was a generation younger than Miao Zhan and Miao Dao, so he called him Sixth Uncle. By saying this, firstly, it would let us understand that there is an irreconcilable hatred between the two families. Secondly, it would also display his impartiality and strictness at the highest level, meticulous and meticulous. A heroic image of a cool breeze and bright moon, causing others to feel deep veneration for him. Everyone who heard his words would think this way. His own younger brother was killed by this person, but he is still able to abide by the principle of fairness. This person is truly a kind and benevolent elder, worthy of respect. And by saying this, although it shows that he is upholding the fairness, it is also the greatest injustice to himself. Because we will think, Mo Wu Dao is so righteous, but Jun Moxie still killed his younger brother. Then Jun Moxie is really in the wrong. And even until now, the hatred between both sides has not been resolved. Is this Jun Moxie a great demon? What kind of heinous crime is he? So although Mo Wu Dao clearly expressed that he was retreating, in reality, he had taken the greatest step forward. And at this step, if we can't analyze it to this point, I'm afraid that in the following period of time, we will unconsciously form a prejudice against Jun Moxie, or even a fixed view of him. From then on, when we come into contact with Jun Moxie, we will unconsciously drift apart. So much so that we don't even need to work together. Just a glance is enough. And for Jun Moxie to be able to reach this step today, how could he be someone easy to deal with? Just a glance and an action is enough for him to be on guard. As long as he is on guard, in this sensitive period, his subconscious will most likely treat the Misty Mansion as an imaginary enemy. As long as the three holy lands add fuel to the fire, even if we don't want to be enemies with them, I'm afraid it will not be possible. So, saying that all of this is part of Mo Wu Dao's plan is definitely not an exaggeration. With just a few words, he has created a strong opponent for Jun Moxie. And, at the same time, he has pulled a firm ally for the three holy lands. Because this person, Jun Moxie, according to the intelligence, has a very unbridled personality. This person has never cared who his enemies are, and has never been afraid. When it's time to strike, even if it's the Emperor of Heaven, he will still stab them with a knife. He even dares to openly provoke the three holy lands. That means that he does not necessarily care about the Misty Mansion. At most, he just doesn't want to face another strong enemy while facing the three holy lands at the same time. So the moment we hear Mo Wu Dao's words, even if it's just a little bit, it is already destined that we cannot avoid going against the evil monarch. Because this is probably the only weakness of a person like Jun Moxie that can be exploited by his opponents. To magnify the greatest weakness of an enemy and make use of it, Mo Wu Dao's schemes are truly impressive. Zhan Wu Yun let out a long breath. He was a little thirsty from speaking so much. Looking around, he found a teacup and poured himself a cup of hot water, drinking it in one gulp. Wiping his mouth, he continued. So, Sixth Uncle, Wufeng personally thinks that this person, Mo Wu Dao, is very sinister. He wants to make use of us. There is no longer any doubt about this. Zhan Wufeng's words, from the inside to the outside, were very detailed and logical. His analysis could be said to be very thorough. But Miao Dao, Miao Jian, Miao Zhan, and Miao Xiao Miao were all stunned when they heard this. Because whether or not Zhan Wufeng's analysis was reasonable could be put aside for now. The premise of his words was very clear. That was, his position was firmly on Jun Moxie's side. Unwavering. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.